The ceiling is a blank screen, but the movie playing is anything but empty. In the quiet of the night, when the world outside has finally softened its voice, the world inside you can begin to scream. The day's events replay without your permission, a frantic reel of conversations you wish had gone differently, of emails still demanding a reply, of faces and expectations that follow you even into this sacred space of rest. The faint hum of the city, the distant siren, they are nothing compared to the noise of your own mind, a relentless narrator of anxieties, of lists, of things that must be done, of goals that feel impossibly far, of a past you cannot change and a future you cannot control. You lie there, a captive audience to a story of pressure and pursuit. If this feeling is familiar, know that you are not broken and you are not alone. This sense of being overwhelmed, of running a race with no finish line, is the quiet affliction of our time. We are taught to seek our peace in the external world, to build it from the materials of success, of possessions, of approval from others. We chase the next promotion, the perfect relationship, the validation of 1,000 strangers online, believing that with just one more achievement, one more acquisition, the frantic noise will finally cease and we will arrive at a place of calm. Yet so often, we reach these destinations only to find them empty, the silence we craved replaced by a deeper, more hollow echo of dissatisfaction. We find that the finish line was just a mirage, and the race simply continues on a different track. But what if the fundamental premise of this race is flawed? What if peace is not a destination to be reached, but a place to which you can return? What if the calm you seek is not something to be built outside, but something to be discovered within? There is another way, a path that was mapped thousands of years ago, a gentle invitation not to escape the world, but to change your relationship with it. It is a path that does not ask you to silence the storm, but instead teaches you how to find the unshakable stillness in its very eye. It begins with a simple, courageous act, the act of turning your gaze inward. The wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a light for this inner journey, a quiet guide to help you navigate the landscape of your own mind, and to find, in the midst of it all, a peace that cannot be given and cannot be taken away. It begins here, tonight, with a single, conscious breath. Before any action, before any word, there is a voice. It is likely the most familiar presence in your entire life, a constant companion from the moment you wake to the final moments before sleep. It is the narrator, the commentator, the critic, and the planner, all rolled into one. It is the voice that says, "This coffee is not quite right, just like yesterday's." It is the voice that, while you are driving to work, is already rehearsing a conversation you need to have this afternoon, or replaying an awkward one from last week. It is a ceaseless, tireless storyteller, spinning tales of past regret and future anxiety, and it lives inside your head. For most of us, this inner monologue is so constant, so pervasive, that we don't even recognize it as a distinct phenomenon. It is simply the background radiation of our existence, the unquestioned soundtrack to our lives. We assume this is what it means to be human, to be a thinking person. We think, therefore we are. And this endless stream of thought is the evidence of our own being. This internal storyteller is often referred to in Buddhist teachings as the monkey mind. The image is a powerful one. Imagine a monkey in a tree, agitated and restless. It never stays on one branch for more than a moment. It swings from a branch of memory to a branch of fantasy, then to a branch of judgment, then to a branch of fear. It chatters incessantly, reacting to everything it sees, grabbing at one fruit, then immediately discarding it for another. This is the nature of the untrained mind. It latches onto a thought, a worry, an idea, holds it for a moment, and then, without rhyme or reason, leaps to the next, and the next, and the next. There is no peace in this frantic movement, only a depletion of energy, a constant, low-level hum of agitation that we have become so accustomed to. We mistake it for silence. The stories this narrator tells are often deeply convincing because it uses the most intimate voice possible, our own. It speaks with our authority. It knows our deepest fears and our most secret hopes, and it weaves them into its narratives. It is a master of the what-if scenario, creating entire feature films of potential disaster from the smallest seed of uncertainty. It is an expert historian of our own failures, able to recall with perfect clarity every mistake we have ever made, presenting them as evidence for a verdict of our own inadequacy. It is also a relentless judge. As you move through your day, it is constantly applying labels. This is good. This is bad. I like this. I don't like that. This person is better than me. I am better than that person. This constant stream of judgment creates a world of division, of separation, of preference and aversion. A world where we can never quite be at ease because we are always on one side of a line or the other. Now, the existence of this mental chatter is not, in itself, the problem. It is simply a function of the mind, like breathing is a function of the lungs. The true source of our disquiet, the root of so much of our anxiety and stress, lies in a fundamental mistake we make, a case of mistaken identity. We believe that we are this voice. We fuse ourselves completely with the storyteller and its stories. When the voice says, "I am anxious," we don't just observe a feeling of anxiety passing through us. We become an anxious person. When the voice says, "I am not good enough," we don't recognize this as a fleeting, conditioned thought. We accept it as a fundamental truth of our identity. We mistake the commentary for the reality. We have given a random, unelected, and often deeply unreliable narrator the absolute authority to define who we are, moment by moment. We are living inside the story, tossed about by its plot twists, believing we are the main character who is doomed to suffer, when in fact, we have the capacity to become the reader of the story itself. The first step, the most profound and revolutionary step on the path to inner peace, is to simply notice this. It is the practice of stepping back just an inch to create a sliver of separation between the observer and the observed. The goal is not to stop the thoughts, not to fight the monkey mind, for that would only create more noise and more struggle. The goal is simply to watch it, to become aware of the storyteller without being swept away by the story. You are not the voice. You are the one who hears the voice. You are not the thoughts that parade across the stage of your mind. You are the silent, spacious awareness in which the parade is taking place. This practice can begin right now. As you listen to these words, you can also become aware of the commentary your own mind is providing. Perhaps it is saying, "This makes sense," or "This is nonsense," or "What am I having for lunch?" It doesn't matter what the thought is. The practice is to simply note its presence, gently, without judgment. Ah, there is a thought of agreement. There is a thought of skepticism. There is a thought about food. In that moment of noticing, you are no longer entangled in the thought. You are resting in the awareness that is watching the thought. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river. The thoughts are like leaves, twigs, and all sorts of other things floating by in the current. For your entire life, you have been jumping into the river, grabbing onto each leaf, struggling with it, being carried downstream by the current. The practice of mindfulness is simply learning to sit on the bank. You watch the leaves float by. Some are beautiful, some are ugly. They come, they stay for a moment, and they go. You don't have to jump in. You can let them pass. Your home is the riverbank, not the river. There is a powerful old story that illustrates this struggle perfectly. It tells of a man who was terrified of his own shadow and his own echo. He could not stand the sight of his shadow following him, nor the sound of his own footsteps echoing back at him. He decided he must escape them. So, he began to run. But the faster he ran, the more faithfully his shadow kept pace, and the louder his footsteps echoed. He believed he wasn't running fast enough, so he pushed himself harder, running faster and faster, a desperate flight from himself, until at last he collapsed on the ground from pure exhaustion and died. The story notes that if this man had simply stepped into the shade of a large tree, his shadow would have vanished. And if he had just sat down and remained quiet, his echo would have ceased. We are, so often, that man. Our thoughts, our anxieties, are our shadow and our echo. We believe that if we just think harder, plan better, or distract ourselves more effectively, we can outrun them. We run towards endless work, towards entertainment, towards any form of doing that keeps us from the discomfort of simply being. And in this frantic running, we exhaust ourselves. We create the very stress and suffering we are trying to escape. The wisdom of this story and of this practice is in the simple, radical act of stopping. The tree is the stillness of awareness. When you cease the struggle, when you stop fighting the thoughts, and instead simply allow them to be, and rest in the quiet observation of them, their power dissolves. The shadow only seems menacing when you are running from it. When you rest, it rests with you. This is not a one-time fix, but a practice, a new way of relating to your own mind. There will be countless times when you forget, when you find yourself back in the river, struggling with a thought. This is not a failure. The moment you realize you are in the river is a moment of pure success, because in that moment of realizing, you have already found the way back to the bank. You can gently, and with great kindness towards yourself, let go of the thought and return to the quiet, spacious awareness that is your true nature. You are learning to disarm the tyrannical storyteller, not by killing him, but by befriending him, by listening to his stories with a compassionate and discerning ear, knowing that you are the listener and not the tale being told. Now that we have recognized this ceaseless stream of thought and the freedom that comes from simply observing it, we might naturally ask a deeper question. Why does this storyteller so often tell tales of sorrow? Why does this mental activity, if left unchecked, lead so consistently to a feeling of dissatisfaction? To answer this, we must look more deeply at the nature of suffering itself, not as a punishment or a mistake, but as a fundamental human experience, a noble truth that holds the very key to its own cessation. Having recognized the tireless storyteller in our own minds, we are led to a fundamental question. Why are its stories so often colored with anxiety, with judgment, with a subtle but persistent feeling of dissatisfaction? The Buddha's first great teaching, the first noble truth, addresses this directly. It is often translated into English with a phrase that sounds stark and pessimistic: life is suffering. This translation, however, misses the profound compassion and nuance of the original teaching. The word from the ancient Pali language is dukkha, and while it certainly includes what we think of as suffering, grief, pain, and sorrow, it carries a much broader, more subtle meaning. Think of it less as a final judgment on life and more as a doctor's initial diagnosis. Imagine a wheel on a cart that is slightly off-center. As it turns, there is a constant wobble, a subtle bumpiness, a feeling that things are never quite right, never perfectly smooth. That is dukkha. It is the pervasive sense of unsatisfactoriness, of dis-ease, of being fundamentally out of joint with the nature of reality. To state the truth of dukkha is not to say that life is devoid of joy, beauty, or happiness. It is simply to acknowledge, with clear-eyed courage, that our human experience, by its very nature, contains this inherent friction. To understand this more deeply, the teachings break dukkha down into 3 distinct types or layers. The first is the most obvious, the one we all know intimately. It is called dukkha dukkha, the suffering of suffering. This is the raw, undeniable pain of life. It is the headache that throbs in your temples, the sharp pain of a broken bone, the chronic ache of an aging body. It is the piercing grief of losing someone you love, the sting of betrayal, the despair of failure, the fear that grips you in the middle of the night. This form of dukkha needs little explanation. It is the overt pain that we spend much of our lives trying to avoid, to numb, or to fix. It is a universal language, a shared vulnerability that connects every human being, regardless of their station in life. No amount of wealth, power, or success can build a wall high enough to keep out the realities of sickness, loss, and death. This is the first, most visible layer of the diagnosis. The second layer is more subtle, and it speaks directly to the heart of our modern predicament. It is called viparinama dukkha, the suffering of change. This is the unsatisfactoriness that arises from the fact that everything is impermanent, including our happiness. Even our most joyful moments are tinged with this form of dukkha, because deep down, we know they will not last. Think of the perfect, warm afternoon of a summer vacation. The joy is real, but underneath it often lies a quiet anxiety, a whisper that says, "This will end soon. I will have to go back to work." Think of the pleasure of a wonderful meal, which is gone in a few moments. Think of the exhilarating feeling of a new romance, which inevitably changes and evolves into something different, something more complex. The suffering here is not in the joy itself, but in our desperate attempt to cling to it, to make it permanent. We are trying to build a solid house on the surface of a flowing river. It is the anxiety of knowing that the things we love will change, the people we love will leave or pass away, and the states of pleasure we achieve will fade. The more we cling, the more we suffer when the inevitable change occurs. This is the dukkha of watching a beautiful flower wilt, of seeing youth fade into old age, of finishing a wonderful book. It is the inherent stress of living in a world where the only constant is change, while our hearts long for a permanence that does not exist. The third and most profound layer is called sankhara dukkha, the suffering of conditioned existence. This is the deepest and most pervasive form of dukkha. It is the background hum of unsatisfactoriness that is woven into the very fabric of our being, simply because we exist as a conditioned, constructed self. It is that vague underlying sense that something is missing, that things are not quite right, even when there is no obvious pain, and even when our pleasant experiences are not immediately threatened with change. It is the existential friction between our desire for a solid, stable, independent self and the reality that we are a fluid, interdependent process. It is this background dukkha that fuels the monkey mind. It is the engine of our restlessness, the constant itch that makes us check our phones, seek out the next distraction, or plan for a future where we will finally, supposedly, be complete. It is the dis-ease of being a composite entity, a collection of ever-changing physical sensations, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, all while clinging to the idea that there is a permanent me in charge of it all. This sankhara dukkha is the wobble in the wheel, the constant, subtle vibration of being out of sync with the true, selfless, and impermanent nature of reality. There is a famous story in the Buddhist tradition that illustrates this journey from personal grief to a universal understanding of dukkha. It is the story of a woman named Kisa Gotami. Her young son had died, and in her overwhelming grief, she refused to accept his death. Clasping his small body to her chest, she went from person to person, desperately seeking medicine that could bring him back to life. Some mocked her, some ignored her, but one wise man, seeing her profound suffering, directed her to the Buddha. She laid her son at the Buddha's feet and pleaded, "Can you make him live again?" The Buddha, looking at her with infinite compassion, did not dismiss her. He said, "I can, but first, you must do one thing for me. Go into the village and bring me back a single mustard seed from a house where no one has ever died." Filled with a desperate hope, Kisa Gotami rushed to the village. At the first house, she asked, "Do you have a mustard seed I can offer to the master for medicine?" "Of course," the kind woman there replied. But as the woman was about to give her the seed, Kisa Gotami asked the crucial question, "Has anyone in this house, a parent, a child, a spouse, ever died?" The woman's face fell. "Oh, my dear," she said softly, "the living are few, but the dead are many. Please do not remind us of our deepest grief." Shaken, Kisa Gotami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was always the same. Every family had a story of loss. Every heart had been touched by death. Every home could offer her a mustard seed, but none could offer her one free from the shadow of grief. As the sun began to set, Kisa Gotami sat by the side of the road, exhausted. Her frantic personal search had failed. But in that failure, a profound understanding began to dawn. She looked at the flickering lights of the village, appearing one by one in the dusk. She watched them burn for a while, and then, one by one, they were extinguished. And in that moment, her own personal, sharp-edged grief began to soften and expand into a vast, compassionate understanding of the human condition. "How selfish I have been in my grief," she thought. "This is the law of the world. They flare up, and they are extinguished." Her sorrow was no longer just her own, it was the sorrow of all beings. With this realization, she returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed in her hand, but with the seed of wisdom planted in her heart. She had seen the first noble truth not as a theory, but as a living, breathing reality. To look at dukkha, then, is not an act of morbidity or pessimism. It is an act of supreme courage and realism. It is the first step toward healing. A doctor cannot prescribe a cure until she has accurately diagnosed the illness. In the same way, we cannot find true peace until we are willing to look honestly at the nature of our own disease, to acknowledge the wobble in the wheel, the bumpiness in the road, the suffering in change, and the background hum of unsatisfactoriness. Is not to give up. It is to finally begin. It is to turn on the light in a dark room. And the Buddha, like the most compassionate of physicians, did not stop with the diagnosis. Having pointed to the truth of dukkha, he immediately went on to point to its cause, to proclaim the possibility of its end, and to lay out the practical path that leads to that end. If this pervasive unsatisfactoriness is the diagnosis, then what is its source? The Buddha's next great insight points us directly toward the inner workings of our own hearts, to the very root of our restlessness, the powerful, deep-seated forces of craving and clinging. If the diagnosis of our fundamental condition is dukkha, a persistent and subtle unsatisfactoriness, then a compassionate physician does not stop there. The next crucial step is to identify the cause. The second noble truth addresses this directly, and its message is one of profound empowerment. It teaches that our suffering, our anxiety, our stress is not a random punishment inflicted upon us by an uncaring universe. It is not the fault of other people or of our circumstances. It arises from a specific, identifiable cause within our own minds. The origin of dukkha is what the Buddha called tanha, a word from the ancient Pali language that translates as thirst, craving, or desire. It is this deep, internal thirst that fuels the restless monkey mind and keeps the wheel of dissatisfaction turning. It is an inside job, and because the cause is internal, the solution can be found there as well. This thirst, this tanha, manifests in three primary ways. The first and most easily recognizable is kama tanha, the craving for sense pleasures. This is the constant pull we feel toward anything that gratifies our senses. It is the thirst for pleasant sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical sensations. In our modern world, this form of craving is amplified to an incredible degree. It is the magnetic pull of the refrigerator late at night, the desire for just one more episode of a television series, the mindless scrolling through social media feeds in search of a novel image or an entertaining video. It is the planning of the perfect vacation, the purchase of the latest gadget, the longing for a more luxurious car. The problem with seeking lasting happiness here is that sense pleasures are, by their very nature, fleeting. The delicious taste of a piece of chocolate lasts for only a moment, and once it is gone, the satisfaction fades, often leaving behind a desire for another. This creates a cycle known as the hedonic treadmill. We experience a brief spike of pleasure. We adapt to it, and then we need a new or more intense stimulus to feel happy again. We are perpetually chasing a horizon that recedes as we approach it, a constant state of running that never leads to a final place of rest. The second form of this thirst is deeper and more entwined with our sense of self. It is bhavatana, the craving to be, or the craving to become. This is not just a thirst for a fleeting pleasure, but a thirst for existence itself, for identity, for status, for becoming a particular kind of person. It is the deep-seated belief that our current self is somehow incomplete or inadequate, and that happiness will be found when we finally become someone else. It is the voice that whispers, "If only I were more successful, then I would be happy. If only I were in a perfect relationship, then I would feel whole. If only I had more followers, a better job title, a more attractive body, then my life would be complete." This craving fuels our ambition, our relentless self-improvement projects, and our endless comparisons with others. It locks us into a perpetual state of striving, where the present moment is never good enough. We are so busy trying to become that we can never simply be. We are clinging to a future, idealized version of ourselves, and in doing so, we treat our present self with a subtle contempt. This is the ego's desperate project to solidify itself, to prove its own importance and permanence in a world that offers neither. The third form of this thirst is the shadow of the other two. It is vibhava tanha, the craving for non-existence, or the craving to get rid of something. This is the powerful aversion we feel toward unpleasant experiences, feelings, and situations. If craving for pleasure is a pull, this is a violent push. It is the intense desire for a headache to go away, right now. It is the desperate wish to annihilate a feeling of anxiety or shame. It is the anger and hatred we feel towards a person who has wronged us, a desire for them to disappear from our lives. It is the urge to escape a boring or difficult situation. We believe that if we can just eliminate the unpleasant thing, we will find peace. But this aversion is just the other side of the coin of attachment. It is a form of intense, negative clinging. By constantly fighting against an unpleasant feeling, we pour our energy into it, giving it more power and making it the center of our universe. Our resistance is what adds the second layer of suffering. The initial experience might be unpleasant, but our desperate, white-knuckled struggle against it is what turns discomfort into true anguish. From this thirst, or tanha, arises the more active state of upadana, which means clinging or grasping. Tanha is the initial wanting, like seeing a beautiful apple and feeling a desire for it. Upadana is the next step, reaching out, grabbing the apple, and declaring, "This is mine. I need this to be happy." It is this clinging, this mental grasping, that is the immediate cause of our suffering. A beautiful sunset is not suffering. The suffering comes from clinging to it and feeling sorrow when the colors inevitably fade. A difficult conversation is challenging, but the real suffering comes from clinging to the idea that it should have gone differently, replaying it over and over in our minds. The external world, with all its pleasures and pains, simply is what it is. It is our internal reaction, our habit of grasping at the pleasant and pushing away the unpleasant, that creates the friction we experience as dukkha. There is a classic teaching story that perfectly illustrates this self-inflicted trap of clinging. In some parts of Asia, hunters developed a clever way to catch monkeys. They would take a coconut or a gourd, hollow it out, and drill a hole in it, just large enough for a monkey's open hand to pass through. Inside the hollow shell, they would place a handful of rice or some other treat. They would then secure the coconut to a tree and wait. Sooner or later, a monkey would come along, smell the rice, and slip its open hand through the hole. It would then grasp the rice, making a fist. But now, its fist, clenched around the prize, was too large to pull back through the small hole. The monkey is now trapped. It will pull and shriek and struggle for hours, but it will not be able to get free. The strange and tragic part of the story is that the monkey is not truly held by the trap. It is held by its own craving. The trap has no power over it. At any moment, all the monkey has to do is unclench its fist, let go of the rice, and its hand will slip out easily. It would be free, but its desire, its clinging to the rice, is so powerful that it will not let go. It would rather be captured by the hunters than release the object of its craving. This story is a perfect parable for our own condition. We are that monkey. The rice is the object of our desire, a pleasure, an idea, a grudge, an identity, a belief about how things should be. The coconut is the situation, and our feeling of being trapped, our stress, our anxiety, our suffering, comes not from the situation itself, but from our own clenched fist of the mind, our own stubborn refusal to let go. Freedom is always available to us, but it requires the courage to open our hand, to release our grip on what we are clinging to. Understanding this second noble truth is not a cause for despair, but for a profound sense of hope. If our suffering were caused by the world, we would be helpless victims, destined to be tossed about by circumstances forever. But because it is caused by our own internal habit of craving and clinging, we hold the key to our own liberation. The path to peace, then, is not about trying to change the world to eliminate everything unpleasant and hold on to everything pleasant, an impossible and exhausting task. The path is about changing the heart, about training the mind to loosen its grip, to unclench its fist. And how do we begin to loosen that tight grip? We start by seeing the objects of our clinging for what they truly are. We must investigate the nature of the rice in our fist. This requires a tool, a lens through which we can see the world with radical clarity. That lens is the understanding of a universal law that undermines the very foundation of our clinging, the inescapable truth of impermanence. We live our lives as if we are walking on solid ground. We build our homes, our careers, our relationships, and our very identities on the assumption of stability. We trust that the person we see in the mirror today is fundamentally the same person who went to sleep last night, and the same person who will wake up tomorrow. Our deepest instincts tell us that things, at their core, are solid, separate, and enduring. Yet, one of the most profound insights of Buddhist wisdom is a direct challenge to this bedrock assumption. It is the teaching of anicca, the universal law of impermanence. This principle states that everything, without exception, that comes into being is subject to change and dissolution. The entire universe, from the grandest galaxy to the most fleeting thought, is not a collection of static objects, but a dynamic, unfolding process. It is a cosmic river, and everything we know is simply a temporary pattern within its ceaseless flow. At first, this idea might sound unsettling, or perhaps just obvious. We see impermanence all around us in its most visible forms. We watch the seasons turn, the vibrant green of summer giving way to the stark silence of winter. We see a towering skyscraper being built, and we know that one day it too will crumble. We buy a new car, and we know that with each passing day, rust and decay are performing their slow, inevitable work. A fallen leaf, a crumbling mountain, the life cycle of a star thief are all testaments to the truth of anicca on a grand scale. We intellectually accept that things change, but we live as if they won't, or at least as if the things that matter most to us will be exempt from this universal law. The suffering arises not from the fact of change itself, but from our resistance to it, from our attempt to find a permanent foothold on shifting sands. This truth becomes far more personal and poignant when we turn our gaze toward our own bodies. The body you inhabit today is not the same body you had 10 years ago, or even 10 minutes ago. It is a vibrant, flowing process of change. Millions of cells are dying and being replaced at this very moment. You breathe in, you breathe out, you eat, and food is transformed into energy. You experience health, and you experience sickness. You watch your face change in the mirror over years, seeing the irrefutable evidence of time's passage. We invest so much energy in fighting this natural flow. We cling to youth. We fear aging. We are terrified of illness and death. This clinging is like trying to command a river to stop flowing. It is an exhausting and impossible battle against the very nature of our existence, a battle that guarantees frustration and sorrow. To understand anicca is to begin making peace with our own biological reality, to see our bodies not as static statues to be preserved, but as living, changing expressions of life itself. Even more transient than our bodies are the contents of our minds. Our mental and emotional world is a kaleidoscope of constant change. Think of any emotion you have ever felt. Where is it now? Happiness arises, perhaps prompted by good news or a beautiful sight. It fills our being for a time, and then, naturally, it subsides. Anger may flare up, a hot and powerful storm, but it too cannot last forever. It dissipates. Sadness may visit, a heavy and persistent fog, but eventually the fog lifts. The weather of the mind is in constant flux. To cling to happiness is to create anxiety about its departure. To fight against sadness is to prolong its stay. The practice of observing this inner flow, without grasping and without pushing away, is the beginning of emotional freedom. We see that we are not our emotions. We are the vast open sky in which the weather of emotion passes. The same is true of our thoughts. As we have seen, they are like clouds, appearing from nowhere, taking a temporary shape, and dissolving back into the emptiness from which they arose. To believe in the solidity and permanence of any single thought is to mistake a cloud for the sky. There is a beautiful Zen story that captures the essence of this teaching. A master and his student were walking on a beach. The master stopped and, using a long piece of driftwood, drew a large, perfect circle in the wet sand at the water's edge. "What do you think?" he asked his student. The student admired the flawless shape, its elegant curve, a mark of perfection against the sand. "It is perfect, master," he replied. They stood and watched in silence. A breeze came up and blew grains of sand across the line, blurring one side. Then, a small wave lapped at the shore, washing away a whole section of the circle. The student felt a pang of disappointment at seeing the beautiful creation spoiled. The master, noticing this, smiled gently. "Now," he said, "it is perfect." In that simple statement lies a profound wisdom. The student, like most of us, believed perfection resided in the static, unchanging form. The master understood that true perfection lies in a thing's ability to be in harmony with the universal flow of change. The circle was not meant to last forever. Its beauty was in its momentary existence, and its perfection was completed by its graceful surrender to the wind and the tide. We spend our lives drawing such circles in the sand. We draw a circle of a perfect career, a perfect family, a perfect plan for the future, and then we suffer immensely when the winds of change and the tides of life inevitably alter our designs. The wisdom of Anika teaches us to find the perfection not in the permanence of the circle, but in the dance between the form and the formless. It is learning to draw with love and care, while holding it all with an open hand, knowing that the ultimate nature of things is to dissolve and be redrawn anew. When we truly begin to absorb this teaching, it does not lead to a sense of nihilism or despair. On the contrary, it can be a source of immense joy and a catalyst for living more fully. It is the very fact of impermanence that makes this present moment so incredibly precious. This conversation, this breath, this particular quality of light in the room will never come again in exactly the same way. This understanding awakens us from the slumber of taking life for granted. It imbues our experiences with a richness and poignancy that is lost when we believe we have all the time in the world. Knowing that our loved ones are impermanent moves us to treat them with greater kindness and attention. Right now, knowing that our own life is a fleeting opportunity gives a gentle but firm urgency to our deepest aspirations. We stop endlessly preparing to live, and we begin to actually live. This is what it means to learn to dance with change. A dancer who is stiff and resists the music is awkward and clumsy. A dancer who relaxes and flows with the rhythm moves with grace and beauty. Life's music is the music of impermanence. By accepting it, we stop being the clumsy dancer, constantly stumbling and fighting the beat. We learn to move with it, to ride the waves of gain and loss, of pleasure and pain, with a growing sense of balance and ease. We develop a deep resilience, knowing that even the most difficult storm will pass. We are no longer shattered by loss, because we understand that change is the nature of things. We are no longer desperately clinging to pleasure, because we know that it too is a passing guest. To see impermanence, then, is to see the very mechanism that loosens the clenched fist of our clinging. when we see, not just intellectually, but with a deep, intuitive knowing that everything we try to grasp is like trying to hold on to smoke. Our grip naturally begins to relax. This deep seeing frees up an enormous amount of mental and emotional energy that was previously consumed by the futile project of resistance. And this leads us to a most profound and unsettling question. If everything is in a constant state of flux, our bodies, our feelings, our thoughts, the world itself, then who or what is the I that is witnessing all of this? If the river of existence is always flowing, where can we find the solid, separate, unchanging self that we work so hard to protect and promote? This powerful inquiry takes us directly into the heart of Buddhist wisdom, to the liberating and radical teaching of non-self. The journey into the heart of our experience has shown us two profound truths. We have seen that our discontent, our dukkha, arises from a deep-seated habit of clinging, and we have seen that everything we try to cling to, from a pleasant feeling to life itself, is marked by the universal law of impermanence, or anicca. It is all a flowing river. This leads us to the most intimate and perhaps most radical question on the spiritual path. If everything is changing, what about the one who is experiencing all this change? What about the I at the center of my universe? Is the observer of the river standing on a solid bank, or is the observer also part of the flow? This inquiry brings us to the teaching of anatta, or non-self, a concept that can be challenging to the intellect, but utterly liberating for the heart. The teaching of anatta does not claim that you do not exist. You are clearly here, listening, thinking, feeling. Instead, it invites us to investigate the nature of this existence. What is this self that we hold so dear? This ego we spend our lives protecting, promoting, and defending? The Buddha approached this question like a scientist, by dissecting our experience into its core components. He taught that what we call a self is in fact a dynamic combination of 5 processes, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. By examining each one, we can search for the permanent, independent self we believe we are. First, there is the aggregate of form. This is our physical body, with all its parts and functions. We often identify strongly with our bodies, but is the body the real you? As we have seen with anicca, the body is in a constant state of flux. It is not the same body you had as a child. Its cells are continuously dying and being replaced. It ages, it gets sick, and one day it will perish completely. Since the body is impermanent and changing, it cannot be the location of a permanent, unchanging self. Second, there is the aggregate of feeling. This includes all our sensations, categorized as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Are you your feelings? Think of the vast spectrum of emotions you experience in a single day, or even an hour. Joy, boredom, irritation, contentment, anxiety. These feelings arise due to conditions. They linger for a while, and then they vanish, replaced by the next. They are like weather patterns passing through the sky. If you were your feelings, your identity would shift from moment to moment, an utterly unstable existence. So, the self cannot be found in our feelings. Third is the aggregate of perception. This is the faculty that recognizes, identifies, and labels our experience. It's the part of the mind that says, that is a tree, this is the sound of a bird, that is a threatening situation. But our perceptions are deeply conditioned by our past experiences, our culture, our language, and our current mood. Two people can look at the exact same event and perceive it in completely different ways. Perceptions are unreliable, subjective, and constantly changing. Therefore, the self cannot be our perceptions. Fourth, we have the aggregate of mental formations. This is a broad and powerful category that includes all our volitional activities, our thoughts, beliefs, opinions, intentions, habits, and prejudices. This is the realm of the inner storyteller, the monkey mind. Are you your thoughts? But thoughts are the most transient things of all, appearing and disappearing like bubbles in water. Our opinions change, our beliefs evolve. If you were your thoughts, who would you be when your mind was quiet? So, the self cannot be equated with our mental formations. Finally, there is the aggregate of consciousness. This is the raw faculty of awareness itself, the knowing of seeing, the knowing of hearing, the knowing of thinking. One might think, aha, this must be the real me, the pure awareness behind it all. But the Buddha pointed out that consciousness, too, is conditioned and dependent. Seeing consciousness cannot arise without an eye and a visible object. Hearing consciousness cannot arise without an ear and a sound. It is not a monolithic, independent entity that exists on its own. It arises and passes away with each moment of experience. So even in the faculty of awareness, we cannot locate a permanent, independent self. After this systematic investigation, we are left with a startling conclusion. We have looked in every component of our being, and nowhere can we find a solid, separate, unchanging I. The self we believe in so strongly is like a rainbow. It appears to be a solid, existing thing, but when you go to its location, you find only sunlight and raindrops. In the same way, the self is a phenomenon that arises from the interplay of body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness, but it has no independent existence apart from them. It is a useful convention, a label we apply to this flowing process, but it is not a fixed entity. It is a verb, not a noun. The most famous illustration of this is the story of the sage Nagasena and the Greco-Bactrian king Melinda. The king, a sharp intellectual, asks Nagasena for his name. Nagasena replies that his name is just a designation and that no permanent person can be found. The king is baffled and challenges him, using Nagasena's chariot as an example. "Venerable sir," the king asks, "is the chariot the pole? Is it the axle, the wheels, the frame, the reins?" To each question, Nagasena answers, "Number." "Then is the chariot something separate from these parts?" the king presses. "No," replies Nagasena. Then, the king declares triumphantly, "You are speaking a falsehood. There is no such thing as a chariot." Nagasena remains calm and turns the question back on the king. "Your Majesty, how did you come here today? By foot or by horse?" "I did not come by foot," the king said. "I came in a chariot." Nagasena smiles. "You yourself have just said you came in a chariot. What then is this chariot? As you have rightly observed, it is not any one of its parts, nor is it something apart from them. Chariot is simply the convenient name, the designation we give to the functioning assembly of the pole, the axle, the wheels, and the reins." He concludes, "In just the same way, Nagasena is a convenient designation for the temporary collection of the 5 aggregates, but when examined in an ultimate sense, no permanent person is found." This insight is not just a dry philosophical point. It is the key to unlocking our deepest suffering, the belief in a solid, separate self. The ego is the source of our most toxic emotions. It is this imaginary I that feels pride and clings to its reputation. It is this I that feels envy and compares itself to others. It is this I that is terrified of criticism, taking every negative comment as an attack on its very being. It is this I that feels profoundly lonely and cut off from the rest of the world. The ego is a fortress we have built around an empty space, and we exhaust ourselves constantly defending its walls. To see through this illusion is not to be annihilated. It is to be liberated. It is to be freed from the heaviest burden we carry, the exhausting, unending job of being me. When you realize that the fortress you have been defending is a mirage, you can finally lay down your weapons. You can walk out into the open field of life with a newfound lightness and flexibility. When an insult comes your way, it no longer has a solid target to hit. It lands on a shifting process of thoughts and feelings, and it loses its sting. When praise arrives, it can be enjoyed for what it is, but it doesn't inflate a non-existent balloon of self-importance. A deep sense of ease begins to permeate your life because you are no longer braced against the world. Furthermore, this understanding is the natural foundation for true compassion. When the hard, artificial boundary between me and you begins to dissolve, we see that we are all interconnected processes. Your suffering is no longer completely separate from my suffering. We are all part of the same vast, flowing river. This seeing gives rise to a spontaneous and unconditional kindness. Having traveled from the truth of our clinging to the impermanence of all we cling to, we now arrive at the empty nature of the clinger itself. This journey can feel abstract. The intellect can grasp the ideas, but how do we experience this freedom directly in our lives? We need a practical tool, a method to ground us in the present moment, where these truths are not just concepts to be thought about, but realities to be felt. This brings us from the realm of philosophy to the heart of practice, to the simple, profound, and always available anchor for our awareness, the breath. We have journeyed through the great and sometimes challenging landscapes of Buddhist thought. We have looked courageously at the nature of our own dissatisfaction, the dukkha that permeates our lives. We have identified its root in the relentless thirst and clinging of our minds, the force of tanha. We have seen how this clinging is doomed to fail, for it grasps at a world that is fundamentally impermanent, a flowing river of anicca, and most profoundly, we have turned our gaze inward to find the clinger itself, only to discover that the solid, separate self we thought we were is also part of this flow, a selfless process of anatta. These are not mere philosophical ideas to be collected and stored in the intellect. They are insights to be realized, truths to be experienced directly. To know them only in theory is like memorizing a map of a beautiful country, but never setting foot on its soil. The question then becomes, how do we make this journey? How do we move from intellectual understanding to lived, felt liberation? We need a vehicle, a practice that can carry us from the noisy marketplace of our discursive thoughts into the quiet, open country of direct experience. The Buddha, with his profound understanding of the human condition, offered a vehicle that is at once simple and powerful, a practice that is available to every single one of us in every moment. It is the practice of anapanasati, which simply means mindfulness of breathing. Why the breath? Why this simple, repetitive, seemingly insignificant process? Its genius lies in its very simplicity. First, the breath is always with you. From the moment of your birth to the moment of your death, it is your most faithful companion. You do not need any special equipment. You do not need to be in a special place. You do not need to believe in anything in particular. Your breath is here, a constant, reliable presence. Second, the breath is always in the present moment. You cannot take a breath that is in the past, nor can you take one that is in the future. To be aware of your breathing is by definition, to be in the here and now. In a mind that is constantly lost in memories of yesterday or anxieties about tomorrow, the breath is a direct, physical anchor that pulls us back to the only moment where life is actually happening, this one. Furthermore, the breath is a perfect bridge between our conscious and unconscious worlds, between mind and body. It happens on its own, an autonomic process, yet we can also control it consciously. This unique quality makes it a sensitive barometer of our inner state. When you are anxious or angry, your breath becomes short, shallow, and rapid. When you are calm and relaxed, your breath naturally becomes slow, deep, and gentle. By simply bringing a calm, steady awareness to the breath, we can begin to influence the mind in a peaceful direction. It is a biofeedback mechanism of incredible elegance, gifted to us by our own biology. The breath is our teacher, our guide, and our refuge, patiently waiting for us to pay attention. So how do we begin this practice? The instructions are beautifully straightforward. First, find a posture that embodies both dignity and ease. You can sit on a cushion on the floor, or you can sit upright in a chair with your feet flat on the ground. The key is to keep your spine relatively straight, but not rigid. Imagine a golden thread, gently pulling the crown of your head toward the sky, allowing your vertebrae to stack one on top of the other. This posture is not about being stiff or formal. It is the physical expression of wakefulness. Your hands can rest comfortably in your lap. You can gently close your eyes, or if you prefer, you can keep them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze toward the floor a few feet in front of you. Now, set your intention. And the intention is simply to be present for a period of time, without any goal of achieving a special state. You are not trying to force relaxation. You are not trying to stop your thoughts. You are not trying to have a mystical experience. You are simply giving yourself permission to stop doing and to just be. Let go of all expectations. This is an act of kindness you are offering yourself. With this gentle intention, bring your awareness to the physical sensations of your breathing. For some, the sensation is most vivid at the tip of the nostrils, where the cool air enters and the slightly warmer air leaves. For others, the focus might be on the rise and fall of the chest, and for others still, it might be the gentle expansion and softening of the abdomen. There is no right or wrong place. Simply choose one spot, your primary anchor point, and allow your attention to rest there, as a butterfly might rest on a flower. Now, you simply observe the breath exactly as it is. When you breathe in, you know, I am breathing in. When you breathe out, you know, I am breathing out. You might notice the length of the breath, a long in-breath, a short out-breath. You don't need to verbalize it every time, but simply sustain a quiet, interested awareness. In, out, in, out. You are not trying to control the breath or change it in any way. If it is shallow, let it be shallow. If it is deep, let it be deep. You have taken on the role of a curious, patient scientist, observing a natural phenomenon without any interference. Your only task is to feel the sensations of each breath, from its beginning, through its middle, to its end. And then the next one, and the next. Inevitably, and this is a certainty, not a possibility, your mind will wander. This is not a mistake. It is not a sign that you are a bad meditator. It is simply what untrained minds do. You will be sitting there, intending to watch your breath, and suddenly you will find yourself in the middle of a mental movie. You might be planning your grocery list, replaying an argument, fantasizing about a vacation, or worrying about a work project. You might be gone for a few seconds, or for many minutes, The moment you realize this, the moment you wake up from the daydream and notice, oh, I'm not with my breath anymore, I'm lost in thought, that is the golden moment of the practice. That moment of realizing is a moment of pure mindfulness. In that instant, you have already woken up. So, the first and most crucial response is not to criticize yourself. Do not say, I can't do this. My mind is a mess. That self-judgment is just another thought, another layer of distraction. Instead, the practice is to greet this moment of realization with gentleness and acceptance. You can even smile inwardly, congratulating yourself for having woken up. You can softly and silently label the distraction, thinking, or worrying, or planning. And then, with the kindness of a parent guiding a lost child by the hand, you gently, patiently, and without any drama, escort your attention right back to the physical sensations of the breath at your anchor point. This process of the mind wandering and you gently bringing it back, over and over and over again, is the practice. It is not an interruption to the practice. It is the practice itself. Each time you guide your attention back to the breath, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. It is like a bicep curl for the brain. The wandering is the resistance that makes the muscle stronger. So do not be discouraged by a busy mind. A busy mind simply gives you many opportunities to practice this gentle, firm, and compassionate return. The quality of this return is everything. A harsh, frustrated return strengthens the habit of self-criticism. A kind, patient return strengthens the habits of mindfulness and compassion simultaneously. You are training yourself not just how to pay attention, but how to be kind to yourself in the process. There is a wonderful Zen story that illustrates this training of the mind. It is the story of a farmer and his wild buffalo. The buffalo represents our untamed mind, powerful, full of energy, but chaotic, restless, and prone to wander off and cause damage. The farmer is the meditator, the one who wishes to train this powerful energy. The farmer comes with a sturdy post, which he drives deep into the ground. This post represents our body, our anchor in the present moment. He also brings a rope, which represents the breath. He manages to get the rope around the buffalo's neck and ties the other end firmly to the post. At first, the wild buffalo is furious. It pulls and strains, running to the end of the rope in every direction, trying desperately to break free. This is like our mind when we first begin to meditate. It fights and resists, throwing up a storm of thoughts and emotions, unwilling to be tethered. The farmer simply stands back and lets the buffalo exhaust itself, ensuring the rope is strong. After some time, the buffalo, realizing its struggle is futile, begins to calm down. It might still wander to the end of the rope, but the struggle is less intense. Eventually, it gives up and lies down to rest at the foot of the post. This is the mind beginning to settle, finding a certain comfort in staying present. Over a long period of patient training, the farmer can finally approach the buffalo and untie the rope. The buffalo, now tame and trusting, follows the farmer wherever he goes. Its powerful energy is no longer a destructive force, but a source of tremendous help in plowing the fields. In the same way, our mind, when trained through the patient application of mindfulness, no longer needs to be constantly roped to the breath. It learns to stay present on its own, and its immense energy can be harnessed for wisdom and compassionate action in the world. As your practice deepens, you begin to see that mindfulness of breath is more than just a concentration exercise. It becomes a laboratory for insight. As you watch the breath, you experience anicca, impermanence, directly. You see that each in-breath has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It arises and it passes away. No two breaths are ever the same. You are not just thinking about impermanence, you are feeling its rhythm in your own body. You also witness anatta, non-self, in a profound way. You notice that the breath is just happening. There is no little you inside your chest pushing and pulling the air. A natural process is unfolding, and you are simply the awareness that witnesses it. The breath breathes itself. This realization gently dissolves the illusion of a solid, controlling self, bringing with it a great sense of relief and ease. This simple practice of returning, again and again, to the anchor of the breath is the most profound gift you can give yourself. It is a returning to the present moment, the only place you can ever truly be alive. It is a refuge from the storms of the mind, a quiet space where you can rest and regain your balance. It is a training in kindness, a way of learning to befriend the wild buffalo of your own mind. It does not promise to make all your problems disappear, but it offers you a way to meet your problems with a calm, clear, and compassionate heart. It all begins with this simple invitation to stop, to sit, and to feel the miracle of a single, conscious breath. Having learned to anchor our awareness in the gentle rhythm of the breath, we have found a home base in the present moment. The breath has tethered our wandering mind, showing us that it is possible to find stillness even amidst internal noise. Now, from this stable foundation, we can begin to broaden our field of awareness. We can move from the single point of the breath to the vast, rich, and often neglected landscape of the entire body. This is the practice of deep listening, of coming home to ourselves in the most literal sense, and inhabiting the flesh and bone that carries us through this life. For most of us, the body is little more than a vehicle, a convenient taxi service for our heads. We live from the neck up, lost in a world of thoughts, plans, and digital screens. We ignore the body's subtle whispers, its quiet communications, until it is forced to scream for our attention through pain, sickness, or exhaustion. Yet, the body is not a mere machine. It is a field of intelligence, a living history book that holds the unprocessed story of our lives. Every moment of stress we have held, every surge of anger we have suppressed, every wave of grief we have not fully mourned, leaves its imprint. These experiences are not just memories in the mind. They are held physically as chronic tension in the shoulders, a knot in the stomach, a tightness in the jaw, a shallowness in the breath. To scan the body with mindful awareness is to begin to read this history with compassion, and to allow what has been held for so long to finally soften and release. This practice is best done lying down, if you are in a place where that is comfortable and you are not likely to fall asleep. You can lie on your back on a mat, a rug, or your bed, with your arms resting gently by your sides, palms facing up as a gesture of openness. If sitting is better for you, that is perfectly fine. The key is to be comfortable, still, and alert. Take a few moments to settle in. Feel the weight of your body, the points of contact with the surface beneath you. Feel the firm, reliable support of the ground, holding you completely. You do not need to hold yourself up. You can let go. You can allow yourself to be held. Let us begin this journey of awareness at the far edge of your physical landscape, with the toes of your left foot. Without wiggling them or needing to feel anything special, simply bring your kind, curious attention to this area. You are focusing your mind just as you would focus a gentle beam of light. What sensations are present here? You might notice the feeling of a sock, the temperature of the air, a sense of tingling, or perhaps a dull numbness. You may feel nothing at all. Whatever is there or not there is perfectly fine. There is no goal to achieve, no right way for your toes to feel. The practice is simply to be aware of the reality of this moment's experience. Now, allow that beam of awareness to expand, to include the sole of the left foot, the heel resting on the ground, the top of the foot, and the ankle. You are exploring this part of your body with the gentle curiosity of a friendly visitor, simply noting whatever you find without judgment. As you breathe in, you might imagine the breath flowing all the way down your leg, entering your foot, bringing fresh oxygen and vitality. As you breathe out, you might feel a gentle softening, a letting go of any tension held there. Now, slowly, let your awareness travel upward into the lower left leg, the shin, and the calf muscle, then to the knee, front and back, then the large muscle of the thigh. You are patiently and lovingly bathing each part of your left leg in this gentle, non-judgmental awareness. Now, bring your attention across to the toes of your right foot and begin the same journey on this side, moving slowly from the toes to the sole, the heel, the ankle, up into the lower leg, the knee, and the thigh. You are comparing nothing, expecting nothing. You are simply showing up for your own experience, inhabiting your body, perhaps for the first time in a long time. From the legs, let your awareness move into the pelvic region, the base of your torso. Feel the weight of your hips, the area of the buttocks and groin. This area can often hold a great deal of tension. Just notice it, without needing to fix it. Let your breath bring a quality of softness and acceptance. Then, slowly begin to travel up the torso. Bring your awareness to your lower back. Is there tightness or ease? Move into the abdomen. Can you feel the gentle rise and fall with each breath? Move your focus to the midsection, the stomach, and the chest. Feel the subtle movement of the ribs as you breathe. Then, travel up to the upper back and the shoulder blades, resting against the floor. This whole trunk of your body, a great container for your vital organs, is now held in your kind awareness. Allow your attention to flow down your left arm, from the shoulder, through the upper arm, the elbow, the forearm, into your left hand and each of your fingers. Then bring your awareness across and down your right arm, to your right hand and all of its fingers. Finally, bring your attention to the neck and throat, another area where we hold so much tension. Feel the column of the neck, the muscles at the side. Let your awareness fill your entire face, the jaw, noticing if it is clenched or soft, the lips and the mouth, the cheeks, the nose, the ears, the gentle muscles around the eyes, the smooth expanse of the forehead, and finally, the very top of your head, the crown. Now, for a few moments, feel your entire body as one unified field of sensation, from the tips of your toes to the top of your head, breathing, alive, and held in this spacious, kind awareness. As you conduct this scan, you will notice that every sensation, from a pleasant warmth to a sharp ache, can be categorized in a simple way. This is the practice of observing Vedana, or the feeling tone of experience. There are pleasant sensations, like warmth, ease, or a feeling of flowing energy. There are unpleasant sensations, like pain, tightness, tingling, or an itch. And there are neutral sensations, which are neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Our entire life is governed by our unconscious reaction to these three feeling tones. We grasp at the pleasant, desperate to make it last. We resist the unpleasant, desperate to make it disappear. And we ignore the neutral, dismissing it as boring. This is the habit of craving and aversion, playing out on the physical level. The body scan is a training ground for interrupting this ancient habit. When you encounter a pleasant, warm feeling in your belly, the practice is to simply note it, pleasant feeling, and to let it be, without clinging to it. When you encounter an unpleasant tightness in your shoulder, the practice is to note it, unpleasant feeling, and to meet it with a spacious, allowing awareness rather than with resistance. You breathe into it, creating space around it. There is a wonderful teaching story about a Zen master who finds an unwelcome guest in his temple. The guest is a large, angry-looking man who is making everyone uncomfortable. The master's students try to argue with him, to force him out, but this only makes the man more belligerent. The master, however, walks calmly up to the man. "Welcome," he says. "You look tired. Let me make you some tea." He brings the man tea and sits with him, listening patiently as the man complains and vents his frustrations. He neither agrees nor disagrees. He simply offers his kind, unwavering presence. After some time, the angry man, having never been met with such acceptance, begins to soften. The anger drains away, replaced by a quiet sorrow. He eventually finishes his tea, bows to the master, and leaves of his own accord. That unwelcome guest is our pain. It is the tightness in our back, the ache in our knee, the anxiety in our chest. Our habitual reaction is to try to throw it out, to fight it, to numb it. But this resistance is like throwing fuel on a fire. It only creates more tension and suffering. The practice of mindfulness is to learn how to serve tea to our pain. We meet it with a kind, curious awareness. We allow it to be there, without judgment. We breathe into it, creating space around it. And very often, when the resistance ceases, when the sensation feels heard and accepted, it loses its power. It may soften, transform, or even dissolve, all on its own. In this way, the body becomes our wisest teacher. We learn about impermanence, anicca, as we feel sensations arise, change, and pass away all on their own. We learn about non-self, anatta, as we see that these are just impersonal, natural processes, not my pain or my pleasure in a solid sense. This practice of listening to the body is a profound act of coming home, of healing the artificial but painful split between mind and body that characterizes so much of modern life. We are no longer living in our heads, but in the vibrant, intelligent, and ever-changing reality of our full embodied experience. This capacity to sit with physical sensations with a spacious and allowing heart is an essential skill. It is the perfect training ground for learning how to meet the even more turbulent and highly charged sensations of our emotional world. Having learned to inhabit our physical bodies with a kind and spacious awareness, we arrive at the next layer of our inner world. If the body is the landscape, then our emotions are the weather that moves across it, sometimes as a gentle breeze, other times as a raging storm. For most of us, our relationship with our emotions is a difficult one. We live in a state of undeclared war with our own hearts. We categorize our feelings into two camps: the good ones, like happiness, joy, and love, which we cling to and try desperately to make last, and the bad ones, like anger, fear, grief, and jealousy, which we treat as enemies to be vanquished. We try to suppress them, to reason them away, to distract ourselves from them, or we are completely consumed by them, becoming puppets to their powerful energy. The Buddhist path offers a third way, a middle path of wisdom and profound compassion. It teaches us that emotions are not good or bad. They are simply energy. They are vital messengers from our inner world. And to learn how to listen to them with courage and kindness is to unlock the door to true emotional freedom. Our two most common strategies for dealing with difficult emotions are both deeply flawed. The first is suppression. When a wave of anger or fear arises, our conditioned reflex is often to push it down, to pretend it isn't there. We might tell ourselves, "I shouldn't feel this way," or "strong people don't get scared." We distract ourselves with work, with food, with entertainment, with anything to avoid the discomfort of the raw feeling. But suppressed emotion does not disappear. It is energy, and it has to go somewhere. It gets lodged in the body as chronic tension, as unexplained illnesses, as a perpetual sense of anxiety. An emotion that is pushed into the basement of the psyche doesn't die. It starts lifting weights. It becomes stronger, darker, and is liable to burst forth at an unexpected moment with disproportionate force. Suppression leads not to peace, but to a fragile and exhausting internal armor that separates us from the vitality of our own lives. The second failed strategy is unmindful expression. This is the opposite of suppression. Instead of pushing the emotion away, we become completely identified with it and act it out. We become the anger, lashing out with words that wound and actions that we later regret. We become the fear, paralyzed and unable to move forward. We become the despair, drowning in a story of our own victimhood. In this state, we have no freedom. We are possessed by the emotion, a boat without a rudder, tossed about by the storm. This path creates immense suffering for ourselves and for those around us. It reinforces a cycle of reactivity, where one emotional storm simply triggers the next. Mindfulness offers us a way to navigate between the frozen sea of suppression and the fiery tempest of unmindful expression. It is the practice of learning to stay present with our emotions without being consumed by them. It is the art of allowing the storm to rage while we remain securely in the calm, quiet eye of the hurricane, in the spaciousness of our own awareness. This practice is beautifully encapsulated in a four-step process known by the simple acronym RAIN, a technique popularized by the Buddhist teacher Tara Brach. RAIN is a lifeline you can use whenever you feel emotionally overwhelmed. The R in RAIN stands for recognize. This is the first, crucial step of waking up from the trance of the emotion. It is a simple, clear-eyed acknowledgement of what is present in your inner world. When a wave of anger washes over you, instead of immediately being swept away by it, you take a mental step back and gently say to yourself, "This is anger," or "Anger is here." When you feel the cold grip of anxiety, you recognize this is fear. This simple act of naming is incredibly powerful. It immediately creates a distinction between you and the emotion. You are no longer anger. You are the awareness that is seeing anger. In this recognition, a small but vital space of freedom is born. The A stands for allow. This is perhaps the most radical and courageous step. It means letting the emotion be there. You give it permission to exist, without judgment, and without needing it to go away. This goes against our deepest conditioning, which is to fix or get rid of anything unpleasant. Allowing is a gentle but firm yes to the reality of the present moment. You are dropping the internal war. You are opening the door of your heart to this unwelcome guest, rather than trying to hold it shut. You can whisper to yourself, "This is allowed to be here," or "Let be." This doesn't mean you approve of the emotion or want to act on it. It simply means you are ending the struggle with what is already true in your inner experience. The I stands for investigate. This is not a cold, intellectual analysis. It is an investigation rooted in kindness and embodied curiosity. Having allowed the emotion to be present, you now gently turn your attention toward it to learn its language. You might ask yourself, "What does this feel like in my body?" This is a crucial question, as every emotion has a physical signature. Where is the anger located? Is it a hot pressure in your chest? A tightness in your jaw? Where is the fear? Is it a cold knot in your stomach? A vibration in your hands? You simply feel into the raw physical sensations of the emotion without needing to change them. You can also ask with gentle curiosity, what does this emotion believe? Fear might believe, I am in danger. Sadness might believe, something precious has been lost forever. You are not arguing with the belief, just listening to it. You can also ask, what does this feeling want from me? Often, the emotion is like a child, wanting simply to be acknowledged, to be made safe, to be held. The N stands for nurture. This is the act of bringing active compassion to yourself. After you have recognized, allowed, and investigated the emotion, you can sense the vulnerable, wounded part of you that is at the heart of the feeling. Nurturing is about offering kindness to that place. The simplest way to do this is to place a hand gently on your heart, or wherever you feel the emotion most strongly in your body. The warmth and gentle pressure of your own hand is a powerful, non-verbal signal of care. You can then offer yourself words of kindness, the words you might offer a dear friend who was suffering. You might say silently to yourself, "It's okay, sweetheart," or "This is so difficult right now. I'm here for you," or "I'm sorry this is happening." You are learning to become your own ally, your own source of comfort and love. You are giving yourself the soothing presence you were probably longing for when the emotion first arose. The great Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, offered a beautiful metaphor for this entire process. He said that our mindfulness is like a loving mother, and a difficult emotion is like her crying baby. When the mother hears her baby crying, what does she do? She doesn't ignore the baby or lock it in another room. That would be suppression. She doesn't start screaming at the baby to be quiet. That would be unmindful expression. No, a good mother immediately stops what she is doing, goes to the baby, and picks it up tenderly. She holds the baby in her arms, cradling it, feeling its warmth and its trembling. The mother's conscious, loving presence is what calms the baby. She may not even know why the baby is crying. Perhaps it is hungry, or cold, or scared, but the simple act of holding it with love is itself the medicine. This is exactly how we can work with our own emotions. When anger, fear, or sadness cries out within us, our mindfulness practice is to pick it up tenderly. We hold it with the unwavering, non-judgmental, and compassionate embrace of our awareness. We don't have to analyze it to death, or even figure out a solution. We simply have to hold it, to be present with it, to bathe it in the warmth of our own kindness. In this loving embrace, the emotion, like the crying baby, naturally begins to settle down. It feels seen, heard, and safe. Through this practice, our inner world is transformed from a battlefield into a garden. We learn that every emotion, even the most difficult, has something to teach us. They are not enemies to be destroyed, but messengers to be welcomed, to learn their language, to care for the vulnerable place from which they arise, is the path to becoming whole. It is the practice of becoming, in the truest sense of the word, your own best friend. This profound act of cultivating kindness for the storms within naturally prepares our hearts to extend that same kindness to the world around us. Having learned to hold our own difficult emotions with the tenderness of a loving mother, we discover within us a capacity for self-compassion that may have lain dormant for years. This gentle, nurturing presence is the seed of an even greater possibility. It is the starting point for cultivating a boundless, unconditional love that can extend far beyond ourselves, breaking down the walls of loneliness and fear that keep us feeling separate and isolated. This is the practice of metta bhavana, The Pali word metta translates as loving kindness, benevolence, friendship, or goodwill. Bhavana means to cultivate or develop. So this is the practice of actively cultivating loving kindness. It is not a passive waiting for a nice feeling to arise. It is the intentional work of the heart, the deliberate training of the mind to radiate warmth and kindness, and it is the most powerful antidote to the states of anger, hatred, resentment, and fear. Our usual experience of love is often conditional. We love people because of how they make us feel, because of what they do for us, or because they meet our expectations. This love, while beautiful, can be fragile. When conditions change, it can easily curdle into disappointment or resentment. Metta is a different kind of love. It is a radical and unconditional wish for the well-being of another being, simply because they exist and because, like us, they have a deep and fundamental wish to be happy and to be free from suffering. It is a love that does not ask for anything in return. It is a radiation of the heart, a quiet and powerful benevolence that we can learn to generate and offer freely to ourselves and to all others. This practice is like tending a garden. We prepare the soil, we plant the seeds, we water them patiently, and in time, the flowers of kindness will bloom. The first and most important plot in this garden is the one dedicated to ourselves. For many of us, particularly in a culture that prizes self-criticism as a motivator, offering loving kindness to ourselves can be the most difficult step of all. We are so accustomed to judging our own flaws, to replaying our mistakes, that the simple act of wishing ourselves well can feel awkward, selfish, or even impossible. Yet, this step is the non-negotiable foundation of the entire practice. We cannot truly offer to others what we are unable to give to ourselves. A well that is dry cannot quench the thirst of those who pass by. To fill our own well with the waters of self-acceptance and kindness is not a selfish act. It is what makes a genuine offering to the world possible. So we begin here. Find your comfortable posture, close your eyes, and take a few breaths to settle into your body. Then, bring to mind an image of yourself. It might be yourself as you are right now, or perhaps it is easier to conjure an image of yourself as a small, innocent child, full of vulnerability and deserving of love and protection. Holding this image gently in your heart, we begin to offer the traditional phrases of metta. There is no magic in these specific words. They are simply vessels to carry the intention of your heart. You can adapt them as you wish. Silently, softly, repeat these phrases, directing them toward yourself. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I be happy and peaceful. May I be healthy and strong. May I live my life with ease. As you repeat these phrases, do not struggle to force a feeling. The practice is not about manufacturing an emotion. It is about the sincere, gentle repetition of the intention. Some days, you may feel a warmth or a softening in your chest. Other days, you may feel absolutely nothing, or even resistance and cynicism. That is perfectly okay. Whatever arises, allow it to be there. The practice is simply to continue planting the seeds, to keep offering the phrases with as much sincerity as you can muster. You are watering the dry ground of your own heart. Trust that in time, something will grow. Once you have spent some time offering kindness to yourself, you can begin to expand the circle of your heart. The next stage is to bring to mind a benefactor, a loved one, or a dear friend. This should be someone for whom you feel easy, uncomplicated warmth and appreciation. It could be a mentor, a family member, a spiritual teacher, or even a beloved pet. Bring their image clearly into your mind's eye. See them smiling, and feel the goodness of their presence. Now, direct the phrases of metta toward them. May you be safe and protected. May you be happy and peaceful. May you be healthy and strong. May you live your life with ease. Notice how it feels to offer these wishes to someone you care for. Often, the heart opens more easily when we are directing kindness outward. Let yourself rest in this feeling of benevolent connection, this simple, joyful wish for another's well-being. After spending some time with your loved one, you gently let their image go and move to the next stage, the neutral person. Bring to mind someone you see regularly, but have no strong feelings about one way or the other. It might be the person who serves you coffee in the morning, a cashier at the grocery store, a person you pass on your commute. We so often move through the world, treating these people as invisible, as mere functions. This stage of the practice is a powerful antidote to our indifference. We consciously recognize their humanity, their existence, as a fellow being who, just like us, wants to be happy. Holding this person's image in your mind, you offer them the same wishes. May you be safe and protected. May you be happy and peaceful. You are intentionally breaking down the wall of separation, seeing the person behind the role. The next stage is the most challenging, and it should be approached with care. This is offering loving kindness to a difficult person. It is important to start with someone with whom you have only mild friction or irritation, not the person who has caused you the deepest harm. The purpose here is not to condone their harmful actions or to force a false reconciliation. The purpose is to protect your own heart from the corrosive poison of hatred and resentment. To hold on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. This practice is the antidote, recognizing that this person is also suffering, that their harmful actions come from their own confusion and pain. You can, as an act of self-care, try to offer them the phrases, "May you be safe," "May you find peace." If this feels inauthentic or too difficult, that is completely fine. Simply return your attention to yourself or your loved one and fill your own heart with kindness. The practice is always to work where you can, with honesty and self-compassion. Finally, having worked with these individuals, we let go of all specific images and allow our hearts to become boundless. We begin to radiate the feeling of loving kindness outward in all directions. Imagine this warmth filling the room you are in, touching everyone present. Then let it expand, filling your city, your country. Wish for all beings in your nation to be happy and free. Let the sphere of your heart expand further to encompass the entire planet. May all beings on earth be safe. May all beings on earth be happy. May all beings on earth be healthy. May all beings on earth live with ease. Extend this wish to all living creatures, without exception, the great and the small, the seen and the unseen, the near and the far, in the sky, on the land, and in the water. This is where we can reflect on the parable of the sun. The sun does not decide who is worthy of its light and warmth. It does not shine only on the beautiful flowers and withhold its rays from the weeds or the mud. Its very nature is to radiate, universally and without discrimination. A fully developed heart of metta is like this. It shines with a steady and unconditional warmth on all of life, recognizing the interconnectedness of all beings and our shared desire for happiness. As you conclude the formal practice, remember that metta is not confined to the meditation cushion. It is a quality of heart that you can carry into your day. You can offer a silent, "May you be well" to the person who cuts you off in traffic. You can offer it to the tired-looking clerk at the post office. You can offer it to yourself when you make a mistake. Metta is the practice that most directly dissolves the painful illusion of a separate self. It is the golden thread that stitches our heart to the hearts of others, revealing the profound and beautiful truth that we are all in this together. This open-hearted wish for all beings to be happy naturally prepares us to respond with action when we see that they are not. It is the fertile ground from which true compassion grows. If the practice of metta, or loving kindness, is the sincere wish for all beings to find happiness, then its inseparable twin is karuna, or compassion. Karuna is the heart's immediate and unconditional response when it encounters suffering. If metta is the sun's warmth, karuna is the cool, soothing rain that falls on a scorched and thirsty land. It is the trembling of the heart, the deep and visceral urge to alleviate the pain of another. Where loving kindness plants the seed of joy, compassion works to remove the stones and weeds of suffering so that joy has space to grow. It is the active, engaged, and courageous dimension of a truly open heart. In our everyday language, we often confuse compassion with pity, but in the Buddhist understanding, they are fundamentally different, almost opposites. Pity creates distance. When we pity someone, we look down from a position of imagined superiority. There is a subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, sense of, "Poor you, I am so glad I am not in your unfortunate situation." Pity reinforces the ego and the illusion of separation. It creates a hierarchy of suffering, with ourselves conveniently placed at the top. Compassion, on the other hand, dismantles walls and builds bridges. It arises from a recognition of equality. It looks across at another being and says, "I see your pain. I recognize this suffering, for I have known suffering too. We are in this together." Pity says, "Your pain." Compassion feels this pain. It is born from the wise understanding that all beings, without exception, are united in their vulnerability to dukkha and in their deep longing to be free from it. This wisdom is the very fuel of genuine compassion. True karuna is not a sentimental or emotionally unstable state. It is deeply rooted in the clear-seeing insight of the first noble truth. When we have had the courage to look deeply at our own suffering, own anxieties, our own losses, our own fierce way develop the capacity to recognize it in others, even when it is hidden behind a mask. We begin to understand that the angry driver who shouts in traffic is likely driven by some deep frustration or fear in their own life. We see that the arrogant colleague who belittles others is likely compensating for a profound sense of insecurity. We realize that the family member who seems cold and distant may be imprisoned by a lifetime of unexpressed grief. This insight allows us to shift our perspective in a revolutionary way. We stop reacting solely to the surface-level behavior, the anger, the arrogance, the coldness, and we begin to respond to the underlying suffering that is motivating it. This does not mean we condone harmful actions or become passive doormats. It simply means we stop seeing others as one-dimensional villains. We see them as complex, wounded human beings, fellow travelers struggling with the universal burdens of the human condition. This seeing is the key that unlocks our heart. It allows compassion to arise even for those we find most difficult, transforming our relationships from battlegrounds of judgment into fields of potential understanding and connection. A common fear, especially for sensitive people or those in caring professions, is the fear of compassion fatigue or empathic burnout. We worry that if we truly open our hearts to the immense suffering in the world, we will be drowned by it, consumed by a sorrow too vast to bear. This fear arises from a misunderstanding of what compassion truly is. Empathy alone, the simple mirroring of another's feeling, can indeed be overwhelming. If we are empathizing with someone who is drowning in despair, we may feel like we are drowning too. This is empathic distress, and it leads to burnout. True karuna, however, is more than just feeling with. It is feeling with, combined with the sincere wish for that suffering to end, and it is grounded in wisdom and strength. Paradoxically, genuine compassion is a source of immense and renewable energy, not a drain. When we are caught in empathic distress, our focus is on our own painful feelings. This is so awful. I can't stand it. When we are operating from a place of compassion, our focus shifts from our own discomfort to the other person's need. Our heart asks, what can be done to help? This shift from self-focused distress to other-focused care is empowering. It imbues us with a courageous, resilient energy that allows us to be present with great pain without being destroyed by it. It is the difference between being a sponge that soaks up all the world's dirty water and becomes heavy and useless, and being a wellspring, a source of fresh, clean water that can purify and soothe whatever it touches. Like loving kindness, compassion can be cultivated through a dedicated practice. We can begin by offering compassion to ourselves, acknowledging our own struggles and pain with the sincere wish, may I be free from this suffering. May I find peace and healing. Then, we can bring to mind a loved one who is struggling, holding them in our heart and offering the wish, may you be free from your suffering. May your heart find peace. From there, we can expand our awareness to the immense suffering in the world beyond our immediate circle. The suffering of those affected by war, by poverty, by injustice, by illness. We contemplate this reality not to become overwhelmed, but to awaken the boundless power of our own heart, radiating the intention. May all beings everywhere be free from their pain. May all find true and lasting peace. The perfect embodiment of this boundless, active compassion is the figure of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, known in Vietnamese as Quan Theum. The legend tells that Avalokiteshvara made a great vow to listen to the cries of the world and not rest until every last being was liberated from suffering. After working for countless eons, he looked out across the universe and saw that, despite his efforts, there were still infinite beings in pain, crying out for help. The weight of this realization was so immense that his heart broke and his body shattered into 1,000 pieces. The Buddhas, witnessing his ultimate act of selfless compassion, reassembled his body, but this time they gave him 1,000 hands, and in the palm of each hand, they placed an eye. This powerful imagery is a deep teaching. The 1,000 eyes represent the wisdom of compassion, the ability to see and perceive the reality of suffering in all its forms, in every corner of existence. It is not a blind or naive sentimentality. The 1,000 hands represent the boundless capacity for skillful action, the ability to reach out and help in a multitude of ways, offering exactly what is needed in each unique situation. Avalokiteshvara teaches us that compassion is not a passive feeling of sorrow. It is the dynamic union of profound seeing and effective doing. It is wisdom and love in action. In our own lives, these 1,000 hands take the form of our everyday choices. Compassion may not be a grand, heroic gesture. It may be the simple act of truly listening to a friend in distress. It may be a kind word offered to a struggling stranger. It may be the act of refraining from a harsh judgment. It may be a donation to a cause that alleviates suffering. Compassion is the heart's most courageous and noble response to the undeniable reality of pain in the world. When joined with loving kindness, it creates a complete and balanced heart, heart that wishes for all beings to be happy and works tirelessly to help them be free from all that prevents that happiness. It is the force that transforms us from isolated individuals into agents of healing for a wounded world. We have journeyed into the heart, learning to cultivate a boundless loving kindness, or metta, for all beings, wishing for their happiness. We have learned to open ourselves to their suffering with a courageous and active compassion, or karuna, wishing for them to be free from pain. These two wings, metta and karuna, allow the heart to soar, but for flight to be steady, especially through the turbulent weather of life, a bird needs not only wings, but also a tail for balance and stability. In the landscape of the heart, this stabilizing force is the sublime and often misunderstood virtue of upekkha, or equanimity. It is the quality that brings all our other spiritual emotions into a state of profound, unshakable balance, allowing us to love the world completely without being shattered by it. Before we can understand what equanimity is, it is essential to understand what it is not. In our culture, which often equates passion with love and dramatic reaction with caring, equanimity can easily be mistaken for its near enemies, indifference, apathy, or cold detachment. But upekkha is the furthest thing from a closed or uncaring heart. Indifference is born of fear and separation. Its motto is, "I don't want to feel, so I don't care." Equanimity is born of courage and connection. Its motto is, "I am willing to feel it all, and I have the strength and wisdom to hold it with love." Detachment can imply a cold withdrawal from the messiness of life. Equanimity implies a deep and compassionate engagement with life, but from a place of profound inner stability. It is not a lack of feeling, but a spaciousness and balance within our feeling. It is the discovery of a quiet, vast, and peaceful clearing in the very center of the forest fire. Upekkha is not cold. It is the serene warmth of a deep and knowing peace. Equanimity is the grounding and the perfection of the other divine abodes of the heart. Without the balance of equanimity, our loving kindness can become distorted. Our wish for a loved one to be happy can curdle into possessive attachment, anxiety, and a desire to control their life for their own good. Our love becomes dependent on them being happy, and when they inevitably suffer, our metta can collapse into grief and despair. Equanimity is the wisdom that allows us to love freely and completely, while respecting the autonomy of others and the uncontrollable nature of life. It whispers to our heart, "Love them, support them, but do not cling. Their happiness is not yours to control." Similarly, without the balance of equanimity, our compassion can be overwhelming. To open ourselves to the immense suffering of the world without a stable container can lead directly to empathic distress and burnout. We can feel drowned by the pain, helpless and hopeless. Equanimity is that vast, strong container. It is the deep, dry ground that can absorb an ocean of tears without becoming a swamp. It allows us to be present with the most intense suffering, to feel it fully, and to respond with helpful action, precisely because we are not being swept away by it. It is the calm hand of the surgeon, steady and effective, because it is not shaking with anxiety. Equanimity is what makes our compassion sustainable and truly effective. It is the source of our resilience. The training ground for developing this profound balance is the raw material of our daily lives. The Buddhist teachings describe 8 conditions, known as the 8 worldly winds, that are constantly blowing, threatening to push us off balance. They come in 4 pairs of opposites: The first pair is pleasure and pain. Our entire conditioned existence is a frantic dance between these two, a desperate chase for pleasant sensations and a fearful flight from unpleasant ones. The second pair is gain and loss. This refers to all our worldly possessions, our wealth, our status, our relationships. We feel elated when we acquire something new, a promotion, a new home, a new friend, and we feel devastated when we lose them. The third pair is praise and blame. We are addicted to the approval of others, and we are terrified of their criticism. A single word of praise can make our day, while a single word of blame can ruin it. Our self-worth becomes a fragile thing, dependent on the ever-shifting opinions of others. The final pair is fame and disrepute. This is the desire to be known, to be popular, to have a good reputation, and the corresponding fear of being ignored, disliked, or shamed. Our lives are a constant oscillation between these 8 winds. We are lifted up on the winds of pleasure, gain, praise, and fame, and we are dashed down by the winds of pain, loss, blame, and disrepute. We are like a small, rudderless boat, tossed helplessly on the waves of circumstance, our inner peace entirely at the mercy of the external weather. The practice of upekkha is the gradual building of a deep and heavy keel for our boat. The winds still blow, and the waves still rise, and falliquanimity does not stop the storm, but the boat remains stable. We still feel the warmth of praise and the sting of blame, but they no longer have the power to capsize us. We have found a center of gravity within ourselves that is independent of the changing conditions of the world. This profound stability arises from the cultivation of wisdom. Equanimity is not a personality trait. It is the natural expression of deep seeing. Firstly, it is rooted in the wisdom of impermanence, anicca. When we have seen, not just intellectually, but in the marrow of our bones, that all these states are fleeting, their power over us diminishes. The pleasure of today will fade. The pain of this moment will pass. The praise of the crowd is a fickle and transient noise. The blame will be forgotten. Why build our home on the side of a tidal wave? Knowing that everything is a passing show, we can participate in it fully, but with a light touch, holding it all with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. Secondly, equanimity is rooted in the wisdom of karma, the law of cause and effect. This is the deep understanding that, while we can influence others, we cannot ultimately control them. Every being is the heir to their own actions, words, and thoughts. We can offer love, guidance, and support, but we cannot walk another's path for them, nor can we shield them from the consequences of their choices. This is one of the most difficult and liberating truths for any parent, partner, or friend to accept. It frees us from the exhausting and arrogant burden of trying to manage the universe. We do our best. We act with as much kindness and wisdom as we can muster, and then we let go of the results, trusting in the larger unfolding of life. Finally, equanimity is rooted in the wisdom of non-self, anatta, when our sense of a solid, separate, and vulnerable I begins to soften. The 8 worldly winds have less of a target to hit. If there is less of a reified me to be praised, the praise lands more lightly. If there is less of a solid me to be blamed, the blame passes through more easily, like wind through a screen door. The ego is the sail that catches these winds and allows them to toss us about. By seeing through the illusion of the ego, we effectively lower the sail. The winds still blow, but they no longer have the power to steer our ship. The most powerful image for this state of being is that of a great mountain. Imagine a vast mountain, its base rooted deep in the earth, its peak soaring into the sky. It sits in a state of profound, unshakable majesty. The sun shines upon it, bathing it in warmth and light. This is like pleasure and praise. The mountain simply receives the warmth. Then fierce winds begin to blow. Howling across its slopes, this is like blame and criticism. The mountain allows the wind to pass, its core unmoved. Rains come, drenching its rock faces. This is like grief and loss. The mountain is washed clean by the rain, but it is not dissolved by it. Violent storms arise. With thunder and lightning, this is like the great calamities of life. The storm rages, and the mountain simply endures, a silent, steadfast witness to the passing fury. Through it all, sun, wind, rain, and storm, the mountain remains. It is not indifferent to the weather. It is fully present to it, fully feeling it. But its fundamental being, its deep, quiet solidity, is never disturbed. To cultivate equanimity is to learn to become this mountain, to find this unshakable ground within our own heart. The formal practice for cultivating upekkha often begins by bringing the other three immeasurables to mind. First, feel the warmth of loving kindness, the deep wish for all to be happy. Then, feel the tenderness of compassion, the sincere wish for all to be free from suffering. Then, holding these feelings, we can contemplate the nature of reality. We can bring to mind all the beings in the world, recognizing the infinite diversity of their lives. Some are experiencing great joy, others immense sorrow. Some are acting wisely, others foolishly. We see the whole chaotic, beautiful, and tragic tapestry of life, and we hold it all in a vast, accepting awareness, offering the quiet intention: all beings are the owners of their own karma. Their happiness and suffering depend on their own actions, not on my wishes for them. I will care, and I will help where I can, but I cannot control what is not mine to control. I offer my love and my help with a heart that is at peace. This is the liberated heart. It is a heart that has found a peace that is not dependent on things going its way. It is a quiet, resilient joy that is not contingent on getting what it wants. Equanimity is the discovery of an ultimate refuge within ourselves, a place of profound stillness and freedom that is always available, no matter how fiercely the storms of the world may rage. It is the culmination of our heart's training, the quality that allows us to walk through this world with an open heart, a clear mind, and a steady, peaceful grace. Having cultivated the beautiful inner states of loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity, our journey now turns outward. A garden that is cultivated internally must eventually bear fruit in the world. The peace and wisdom we find on the meditation cushion are not meant to be kept as a private treasure. They are meant to inform our every action, to transform our way of being in the world. The Buddha provided a clear and practical framework for this integration, known as the Noble Eightfold Path. And the very first element of this path that deals with our active engagement with others is samavaka, typically translated as right speech. This is a recognition of a profound truth. Our words are one of the most powerful forces we wield. With our speech, we can build bridges or burn them down. We can heal a wounded spirit or inflict a wound that lasts a lifetime. To practice right speech is to learn how to use this power with mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion. The practice of right speech is not a rigid censorship or a set of commandments to be followed out of fear. It is a conscious and intelligent practice of communication, rooted in the intention to cause no harm and, wherever possible, to be of benefit. The classic teachings outline 4 aspects of right speech, which can be thought of as 4 gates that our words should pass through before we release them into the world. The first gate is abstaining from false speech. At its most basic level, this means not telling lies, but it goes much deeper than that. It is a commitment to truthfulness in all its forms. It means not exaggerating to make our stories more impressive, not making promises we have no intention of keeping, not misrepresenting the truth for personal gain. It is an invitation to be honest, not only with others, but with ourselves. This commitment to truth builds a foundation of inner integrity. When our words are aligned with reality, we become more trustworthy to others, and, more importantly, we learn to trust ourselves. Our inner world becomes less complicated, as we no longer have to maintain a web of deceptions. We can rest in the simplicity of what is true. The second gate is abstaining from slanderous or divisive speech. This is speech that is used as a weapon to create disharmony, to set one person or group against another. It includes gossip, backbiting, spreading rumors, and saying things about one person to a second person in order to damage their relationship. It is the language of us versus them. Right speech, in contrast, is unifying speech. It is speech that seeks to heal rifts, to encourage reconciliation, and to highlight what connects us rather than what divides us. Instead of carrying tales of conflict, a person practicing right speech seeks to be a force for harmony. They speak in a way that builds trust and fosters mutual understanding. The third gate is abstaining from harsh or abusive speech. This is speech that is intended to cause pain. It is the language of anger, contempt, and cruelty. It includes shouting, insulting, name-calling, belittling, and using sarcasm as a weapon to wound another's heart. This kind of speech arises from an unskillful mind and creates immense suffering for both the speaker and the listener. The practice here is to cultivate speech that is gentle, kind, and courteous. Even when we must communicate something difficult or deliver a criticism, we can choose to do so with words that are constructive, respectful, and pleasant to the ear. We learn that gentleness is not a sign of weakness, but of a deep inner strength and self-control. The fourth and final gate is abstaining from idle chatter. This is speech that is aimless, purposeless, and ultimately empty. It is the habit of talking just to fill the silence, of engaging in endless gossip about celebrities or acquaintances, of complaining for the sake of complaining, without any intention of finding a solution. This kind of speech, while it may seem harmless, dissipates our mental energy and clouds the mind. It often leads us inadvertently through the other three gates of wrong speech. A conversation that begins as idle chatter can quickly devolve into gossip or criticism. The practice of right speech encourages us to value silence, to speak with intention and purpose. It asks us, is what I am about to say meaningful? Is it useful? Often, the most skillful, kind, and wise form of right speech is a noble and compassionate silence. Beyond these four gates of what to avoid, there is a positive and practical checklist we can use in the moment. Before we speak, we can train ourselves to pause, even for just a fraction of a second, and filter our intention through a few key questions. First, is it true? Am I certain of the facts, or am I repeating something I heard? Second, is it kind? What is the underlying intention of my heart as I prepare to speak? Is it to connect, to help, to support? Or is it to assert my ego, to win an argument, to put someone down, or to vent my own frustration? Third, is it beneficial or necessary? Will my words improve the situation, bring clarity, or offer comfort? Does this truly need to be said? Or am I just speaking out of habit? And finally, is it the right time and place? Even a statement that is true, kind, and necessary can cause harm if it is spoken at the wrong moment. Public criticism, for example, is rarely skillful. Wisdom in speech includes a sensitivity to context and timing. Of course, communication is a two-way street. The practice of right speech is therefore incomplete without the practice of right listening. So often, we listen with what is called autobiographical intent. We are not truly listening to understand the other person's experience. We are listening in order to formulate our own response, to share our own similar story, to offer our unsolicited advice, or to defend our own position. This is not true listening. The practice of deep listening, as taught by masters like Thich Nhat Hanh, is the act of offering the other person the incredible gift of our full, non-judgmental attention. We listen not to reply, but simply to give the other person the space they need to be heard, to empty their heart. This compassionate, silent presence can be more healing and create a deeper connection than any eloquent words we could ever muster. What do we do when we are on the receiving end of someone else's unskillful, harsh speech? There is a powerful story that offers guidance. A man once came to the Buddha and began to insult and berate him relentlessly. The Buddha listened patiently and silently until the man was finished. Then he asked him a simple question. "Sir, if you bring a gift to someone and that person does not accept your gift, to whom does the gift then belong?" The man, surprised, replied, "Well, it would belong to me, of course." The Buddha then said, with great calm, "Likewise, sir, your anger, your insults, and your abuse, I do not accept them. They remain with you." This is a profound teaching. We cannot control what others say, but we have a choice about whether or not we internalize their negativity. Right speech includes the wisdom of not picking up the poison that others try to hand us. Our inner peace can remain intact, even in the face of another's storm. Every conversation we have is an opportunity to practice. Every word we speak is a seed we are planting. We can plant seeds of misunderstanding, division, and pain, or we can plant seeds of clarity, harmony, and healing. The garden of our life and our relationships will grow directly from the seeds we choose to sow with our speech, day after day. Right speech is the profoundly practical and immediate way that we begin to weave the piece of our own heart into the fabric of the world. Following the path of right speech, we learn to shape the world and our relationships through the power of compassionate communication. The Eightfold Path now invites us to broaden this principle of skillful intention to encompass our physical behaviors. Our words are the first expression of our inner state, but our actions are their tangible confirmation. How we use our bodies, how we engage with the world through our deeds, and how we spend the precious hours of our working life are all profound opportunities for practice. This is the domain of Samma Kammanta, or right action, and Samma Ajiva, or right livelihood. Together, they form the blueprint for living a life of integrity, purpose, and deep, unshakable peace. Right action, at its heart, is the practice of non-harming. It asks us to consider the ethical dimension of our physical presence in the world. Like right speech, it is not a set of rigid, external rules, but a conscious, internal commitment to act in ways that create safety, trust, and well-being for all. The traditional teachings outline three core areas of this practice. The first, and most fundamental, is abstaining from taking life. In its most direct sense, this is a commitment to not kill another human being, but its spirit, the spirit of ahimsa, or non-harming, radiates much further. It is a cultivation of a deep reverence for all life. This principle has led many practitioners, ancient and modern, to adopt vegetarian or vegan lifestyles. recognizing the suffering inherent in the mass production of meat. In our daily lives, it means refraining from all forms of physical violence and abuse. But it also invites a more subtle inquiry. Are our actions contributing to the destruction of the environment, the home we share with all other beings? Are our consumption habits fueling systems that exploit or harm others, near or far? The positive expression of this principle is not just to refrain from harm, but to actively protect and cherish life in all its forms. The second pillar of right action is abstaining from taking what is not given. This is the principle of not stealing. Again, the teaching asks us to look beyond the obvious. It certainly means not taking another's physical property, but it also means not taking advantage of a situation for unfair gain, not cheating on our taxes, not plagiarizing or taking credit for another person's work. It is about respecting the boundaries and ownership of others in the broadest sense. Are we stealing a company's time through negligence or a friend's energy through constant complaint? The positive cultivation here is the practice of dana, or generosity. Instead of asking, "What can I get?" we begin to ask, "What can I give?" We practice being fair, honest, and trustworthy in all our dealings, creating a world where people can feel secure and respected. The third pillar is abstaining from sexual misconduct. This principle calls for us to bring mindfulness, respect, and kindness into our intimate lives. It means not causing harm to ourselves or others through our sexual energy. This includes refraining from any form of exploitation, coercion, or deception. It is about honoring the commitments we have made, respecting the physical and emotional boundaries of our partners, and ensuring that our sexuality is an expression of genuine connection, care, and mutual consent, rather than a means of mere gratification or a way to manipulate or control another. It is about recognizing the sacredness of intimacy and treating it with the care and integrity it deserves. These principles of right action then extend into the area of our life where our actions are most concentrated, our work. This is the domain of right livelihood. The Buddha understood that it is very difficult to maintain a peaceful and clear mind if the work we do for 8 or more hours a day is fundamentally in conflict with our deepest values. Right livelihood is the practice of choosing to earn a living in a way that does not cause harm and, ideally, contributes to the good of the world. The classic texts list 5 types of trade to be avoided: trade in weapons, trade in living beings, which includes slavery, prostitution, and raising animals for slaughter, trade in meat, trade in intoxicants, such as alcohol, and drugs that cloud the mind, and trade in poisons. The underlying principle is clear. Any profession that requires you to violate the precepts of right action or right speech is considered wrong livelihood. In our complex modern world, we can extend this inquiry. Is my work contributing to the destruction of the planet? Does my company engage in deceptive advertising or predatory financial practices? Am I involved in creating technologies that are designed to be addictive and that degrade human well-being? To ask these questions is not to seek a perfect or pure job, which may not exist. It is to begin the process of aligning our daily work with our deepest intention to not cause harm. However, the path of right livelihood is not just about what we do. It is profoundly about how we do it. One can have a noble profession, like a doctor or a teacher, but perform it with arrogance, impatience, and a lack of care. Conversely, one can have a very simple job and transform it into a profound spiritual practice. The janitor who sweeps the floor can do so with a meditative focus, bringing a quality of care and attention to his work that creates a peaceful environment for everyone. The administrator answering emails can practice right speech in every correspondence, choosing words that are clear, kind, and helpful. The barista preparing coffee can see each cup as an act of generosity, an offering to help someone start their day. The focus shifts from "what can I get out of this job" to "what can I bring to this job?" We can bring mindfulness, patience, integrity, and compassion to any task. There is a beautiful story of a traveler who comes across 3 stonemasons, all working on a single project. He approaches the first mason, who is grumbling and looks miserable. "What are you doing?" the traveler asks. "Isn't it obvious?" The man snaps back. "I'm chipping away at this stupid heavy rock. My back hurts, the sun is hot, and the pay is too low." The traveler moves to the second stonemason, who is working diligently but without any joy. "And what are you doing?" he asks. The man replies matter-of-factly, "I'm earning a living. I have a family to feed, and this is my job." Finally, the traveler approaches the third stonemason. This man is also sweating in the sun, but he works with a graceful focus, a quiet energy. There is a light in his eyes. "And you, sir, what are you doing?" the traveler asks. The man pauses, looks at the stone with affection, and then looks at the traveler with a serene smile. "I," he says, "am building a great cathedral." And all 3 men had the same job, but only the third had right livelihood. His work was infused with a sense of purpose, of being part of something larger than his own small struggles. His joy and his peace came not from the external conditions, but from the quality of attention and intention he brought to the process itself. This is the essence of right action and right livelihood. They are the path to an integrated life, a life where there is no longer a painful gap between our inner values and our outer behavior. When our actions in the world are a true reflection of the kindness and wisdom we are cultivating in our hearts, we experience a profound sense of wholeness. This integrity is a deeper kind of happiness than any fleeting pleasure or material gain. It is the quiet, abiding peace that comes from knowing that we are living a life of purpose. A life that, step by step, word by word, and deed by deed, is a force for good in the world. Having aligned our speech and our actions with the principles of non-harming and compassion, we arrive at a crucial junction. We have built a strong, ethical foundation for our lives. Yet, even with the best intentions, we live in a world that constantly bombards us with a powerful and seductive message, a message that runs directly counter to the peace we seek. It is the great promise of modern materialism, the promise that happiness, contentment, and self-worth can be purchased. It whispers to us from every screen, every billboard, every magazine. It is the engine of our economy and, for many, the unquestioned assumption that drives their lives. To find true inner peace, we must have the courage to investigate this promise and to see it for the profound illusion that it is. The entire system of modern materialism is a masterclass in the generation of dukkha. It operates on a simple, 2-step formula that perfectly mirrors the arising of suffering as described in the Four Noble Truths. First, it must create dukkha, a sense of lack or dissatisfaction. Advertising rarely sells you a product. It sells you a feeling of inadequacy. It subtly convinces you that your current life, your current self, your current possessions are not good enough. Your car is too old. Your phone is outdated. Your clothes are unfashionable. Your home is unimpressive. A feeling of lack, of anxiety, of not enoughness is intentionally generated. Then, once this dis-ease has been established, the system presents its cure, a product, a service, an experience. It promises that this purchase will be the one that finally fills the void, that quiets the anxiety, that makes you a complete happy, and admirable person. This is the generation of tanha, of craving, as the solution to the manufactured dukkha. It is a perfect, self-perpetuating cycle of suffering. The tragedy of this model is that the promise is always empty for two fundamental reasons. The first is the law of impermanence, anicca, which we have already explored. The thrill of a new acquisition is, by its very nature, fleeting. The new car smell fades. The excitement of the latest smartphone is quickly replaced by the desire for the next model. The fashionable dress hangs in the closet after one season. To base our happiness on the accumulation of things is to build our house on a foundation of melting ice. We are clinging to temporary states, which is the very definition of viparinama dukkha, the suffering of change. The brief high of the purchase is inevitably followed by the low of its novelty wearing off, which then sends us scrambling for the next high. This leads to the second reason the promise is empty, the nature of desire itself. Acquiring something rarely satisfies our craving. It usually just recalibrates it to a higher level. This is the psychological reality of the hedonic treadmill. A person who dreams of affording a simple apartment soon finds themselves dreaming of a larger house. The person who finally buys their dream car immediately starts noticing the even more luxurious models on the road. The goalposts of desire are constantly shifting, always just out of reach. We run faster and faster, accumulating more and more, only to find that our baseline level of happiness has not changed at all. Furthermore, this relentless pursuit often comes at a tremendous hidden cost. We trade our most precious, non-renewable resource, time working long hours, in stressful jobs, to afford things we don't truly need. We sacrifice our peace of mind, our health, and the quality of our relationships at the altar of accumulation. We are, in effect, trading true gold for shiny plastic. The wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a liberating alternative. It is not a call for a life of harsh, ascetic poverty, but a radical shift in our inner orientation, from a mindset of accumulation to one of appreciation. This is the practice of apicchata, or simplicity, and santuthi, or contentment. Simplicity is the conscious and intentional reduction of our wants. It is a joyful uncluttering of our lives, and, more importantly, our minds. We begin to look at our desires and ask, not, what does the world tell me I should want, but what do I truly need to live a healthy, peaceful, and meaningful life? We discover that the list is often surprisingly short. A safe place to live, nourishing food, meaningful relationships, and a mind at peace. By consciously simplifying our needs, we free ourselves from the endless pressure to acquire. We step off the hedonic treadmill. We find a new kind of wealth, the wealth of time, the wealth of energy, the wealth of a mind that is not constantly agitated by craving. This brings an incredible lightness and freedom to our lives. The companion to simplicity is contentment. If simplicity is about having few wishes, contentment is the art of being satisfied and grateful for what we already have. It is the direct antidote to the mind of lack that materialism fosters. We can actively cultivate contentment through the practice of gratitude. Instead of allowing our minds to fixate on what is missing, we can intentionally direct our attention to the abundance that is already present. We can wake up in the morning and feel a genuine sense of gratitude for the bed we slept in, for the roof over our head, for the fact that we have food for the day. We can appreciate the simple, non-material sources of joy, the warmth of the sun, the taste of clean water, a conversation with a friend, the beauty of a tree outside our window. This practice retrains the mind, shifting its default setting from a state of not enough to a state of more than enough. This inner state of contentment is a true and lasting treasure, one that no one can ever take from you. There is a timeless story that captures this truth perfectly. A powerful king, whose wealth was legendary and whose armies had conquered many lands, heard tales of a wise sage who lived in a simple hut in the forest and was said to be perfectly happy. Intrigued and slightly disbelieving, the king journeyed to meet him. He found the sage sitting peacefully outside a tiny dwelling, with nothing to his name but a simple cloth robe and an earthenware bowl. The king, accustomed to his palaces and overflowing treasuries, asked the sage, "How can you possibly be content? You have nothing." The sage looked at the king with kind eyes and replied, "I am content because my wants are few. But let me ask you a question in return, Your Majesty. You seem to have everything a man could ever desire: palaces, gold, servants, power. Why then do you continue to wage bloody wars to conquer even more kingdoms?" The king was stunned into silence, for he had no answer. He realized in that moment that despite his vast material wealth, he was living in a state of profound poverty, the poverty of infinite desire. The sage, on the other hand, with almost no possessions, was the richest man in the world, for he was blessed with the treasure of a contented mind. This is the liberating insight that frees us from the chains of materialism. The true treasure we seek is not outside of us. It is not hidden in the next purchase, the next promotion, or the next accomplishment. The frantic pursuit of external things is a distraction from the search for the peace that can only be found within. The joy of simplicity and contentment is not the grim joy of deprivation. It is the radiant joy of freedom. Freedom from the exhausting cycle of craving and disappointment. Freedom from the anxiety of protecting what we have and grasping for what we lack. When we are no longer tethered to the belief that our happiness lies in the acquisition of things, we are finally free to discover it where it has always been, in the quality of our presence, the depth of our human connections, and the serene, uncluttered spaciousness of our own mind. Having explored how to live with integrity in the world, we now turn to one of the most intimate, rewarding, and often challenging arenas of human life: our relationships. For many, the search for love, for a deep and lasting connection with another, is the central quest of their existence. Our culture presents us with a powerful and alluring narrative of romantic love, that somewhere out there is a perfect partner, a soulmate or other half, who will complete us, vanquish our loneliness, and deliver us to a state of permanent happiness. While this narrative is the fuel for countless songs and stories, it is also, from a spiritual perspective, a blueprint for suffering. It sets us up to see love not as a practice of giving, but as a project of acquisition, and it places an impossible burden on another human being to be the source of our own salvation. The wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a different vision of love, one that is grounded not in neediness and fantasy, but in freedom, understanding, and the clear-seeing light of mindfulness. The core of this teaching is a simple but profound distinction: the difference between love and attachment. True love, or metta, is the unconditional wish for another to be happy. Attachment, or upadana, is the clinging need for another person to be a certain way in order to make us happy. Attachment says, "I love you, so you must never change." Love says, "I love you, so I will support you as you grow and change." Attachment says, "Your happiness makes me happy." Love says, "I wish for your happiness, even when it is independent of me." When we confuse love with clinging, our relationships inevitably become a source of dukkha, because we are trying to control the uncontrollable and possess what can never be owned. To build relationships on a foundation of wisdom, we can apply the same three fundamental truths we have explored earlier, the three marks of existence, to our intimate lives. First, we must recognize the truth of impermanence, anicca. No relationship is a static entity. It is a living, breathing, constantly evolving process. The thrilling, passionate phase of a new romance will naturally mature into something different. The people in the relationship are also not static. Your partner is changing every day, just as you are. Their body is changing, their thoughts are changing, their dreams and opinions are evolving. To cling to a memory of who your partner was 5 years ago, or to demand that the relationship stay frozen in its initial, blissful state, is to fight a battle against reality itself. Mindful love embraces this flow. It creates the space for both partners to grow and change, and it finds beauty in every stage of the journey, not just the beginning. Second, we must understand the truth of unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, in the context of our relationships. This means recognizing that no single person can ever be the source of our ultimate, lasting happiness. To expect a partner to heal all our childhood wounds, to soothe all our anxieties, and to fill our every emotional need is to place an unfair and crushing burden upon them. It dooms the relationship to failure because no human can live up to the fantasy of being a god. The practice of mindful love involves taking radical responsibility for our own inner peace. While a relationship can be a source of profound joy, comfort, and support, it is not a substitute for the inner work of cultivating our own contentment. When two people come together who are both committed to tending their own gardens, they can create a beautiful space together, but they do not demand that the other person be their entire landscape. Third, the wisdom of non-self, anatta, can completely transform how we navigate conflicts and connection. We let go of the myth that we are looking for our other half to make us whole. The truth is, we are already whole, just as we are. A mindful relationship is not about two broken halves trying to form one entity. It is about two whole individuals choosing to walk a shared path. This understanding of non-self also softens the hard edges of the ego during disagreements. When your partner offers a criticism, you can learn to see it not as a fundamental attack on a solid, permanent me, but as one flowing process of thoughts and feelings interacting with another. This creates the space to listen with curiosity rather than defensiveness, to seek understanding rather than to win the argument. With this wisdom as our foundation, we can then actively cultivate the four sublime states of the heart within our relationships. Loving kindness, metta, becomes the daily practice of wishing our partner well, of actively looking for their good qualities, and of making their happiness a sincere priority. Compassion, karuna, becomes our ability to be present with our partner when they are suffering, to listen to their pain with an open heart, and to offer them comfort without judgment. A third quality, appreciative joy, mudita, becomes essential. This is the ability to feel genuine, unselfish happiness for our partner's successes and joys. It is the antidote to the poison of jealousy or competition that can sometimes arise even in loving relationships. And finally, equanimity, upekkha, provides the crucial balance. It is the spaciousness that allows us to love our partner without possessive clinging. It is the wisdom that gives them the freedom to be who they are, separate from our needs and desires. It is the stable ground that allows us to weather the natural storms of a shared life without losing our own center. There is a beautiful image that captures the essence of a mindful relationship, that of two trees growing side by side in a forest. For the relationship to be healthy, each tree must have its own strong and independent root system. Each must draw its own water and nutrients from the earth. One tree cannot hold the other up. If one is leaning on the other, both are weakened. They must each be responsible for their own grounding, their own stability. This represents the two individuals in a relationship, each taking responsibility for their own inner work, their own happiness, and their own spiritual path. But as these two strong, independent trees grow, their branches can begin to intertwine. They can offer shade to one another. They can protect each other from the harshest winds. Their leaves can rustle together, creating a beautiful music. They create a shared ecosystem where both can flourish even more fully. Their trunks remain distinct, their roots separate, but their lives are beautifully and supportively interwoven. This is the model of a conscious partnership. It is not a merger of two incomplete people into one, but a synergy between two whole individuals who are committed to supporting each other's journey toward the light. Ultimately, love ceases to be a destination to be reached and becomes a path to be walked. A mindful relationship is one of the most powerful vehicles for spiritual growth available to us. It is a living laboratory where we have the daily opportunity to practice patience, forgiveness, generosity, communication, and deep seeing. The goal is not to find the perfect person, an illusion that will always lead to disappointment. The goal is to learn how to perfectly love the imperfect person with whom we have chosen to share our life. This daily practice of mindful loving creates ripples of kindness and understanding that extend far beyond the relationship itself, influencing how we interact with the entire world. As we learn to navigate our relationships with a mindful heart, we begin to see a powerful truth in action. Our choices have consequences. A kind word creates a moment of connection. A harsh word creates a moment of distance. This simple observation is the doorway to understanding one of the most profound and often misunderstood teachings on the spiritual path, the law of karma. In the West, the word karma is frequently tossed around with a sense of mystical foreboding, as if it were a cosmic system of reward and punishment, an inescapable fate handed down by an unseen judge. But the Buddhist understanding of karma is something far more practical, intimate, and ultimately empowering. It is the opposite of fate. It is the natural law of cause and effect, and it places the power to shape our destiny firmly in our own hands. To truly grasp the liberating power of this teaching, we must first clear away the myths that obscure it. Karma is not fate. Fate is the idea that our lives are predetermined, that our destiny is written in stone, and we are merely actors playing out a pre-written script. Karma is the very opposite. It asserts that our lives are not pre-written. We are writing them, moment by moment, with every choice we make. It is the law of radical responsibility. Karma is also not a system of divine punishment or reward. There is no cosmic courtroom, no celestial judge weighing our deeds on a scale. It is an impersonal, natural law, as fundamental to the universe as the law of gravity. If you hold an apple and release your grip, it falls to the ground. The apple is not being punished. It is simply obeying a natural principle. In the same way, if you act with an intention born of anger, a painful result will eventually follow, not as a punishment, but as the natural, energetic consequence of the anger itself. The cause contains the seed of the effect. Finally, karma is not a simple, linear equation where one bad deed is immediately met with one piece of bad luck. The workings of cause and effect are incredibly complex, like a vast and intricate ecosystem. Many causes, many conditions, from this life and from the past, come together to create any single experience. This is why we sometimes see seemingly good people encounter great difficulty and seemingly unkind people enjoy worldly success. We are all living through the ripening of a complex web of seeds planted over a great expanse of time. To judge another's situation and say, "That must be their karma," is an act of spiritual arrogance. We can never know the full story. The true purpose of understanding karma is not to judge others, but to bring a wise and careful attention to our own actions, right here and now. So, if karma is not fate or punishment, what is it? The Buddha was very precise about this. He said, "It is intention, monks, that I call karma." Having intended, one acts through body, speech, and mind. This is the absolute heart of the teaching. The moral character of an action, the type of seed it plants, is determined not by the external act itself, but by the intention, the volition, the inner motive that drives it. This is called cetana in the ancient Pali language. Consider this. One person is driving and accidentally hits an animal that darts into the road. They are filled with remorse and sadness. Another person swerves their car deliberately to hit an animal by the roadside, feeling a thrill of malice. The external act and animal is killed is the same, but the inner cause, the intention, is worlds apart. The first act, being unintentional, plants a very light or neutral karmic seed. The second act, being born of a cruel intention, plants a deeply unwholesome and painful seed. The same is true for positive actions. Giving a large sum of money to charity with the intention of gaining fame and a good reputation creates a very different result than giving a small amount with a pure, selfless heart of generosity. Karma is all about the quality of the heart behind the deed. The teachings further clarify this by identifying the roots of our intentions. All of our actions, words, and thoughts spring from one of 6 roots. There are 3 unwholesome roots, the 3 poisons that lead to suffering. They are greed, the mindset of grasping, craving, and not enough; hatred, which includes all shades of aversion, from mild irritation to violent rage; and delusion, the fog of ignorance, confusion, and not seeing things as they truly are. Any action motivated by these 3 poisons plants the seeds for future pain. Conversely, there are 3 wholesome roots that are the foundation for all happiness and well-being. They are non-greed, which manifests as generosity, letting go, and contentment; non-hatred, which manifests as loving, kindness, compassion, patience, and forgiveness; and non-delusion, which is the light of wisdom, clarity, and understanding. Every time we act from one of these wholesome roots, we are planting a seed for future happiness, peace, and freedom. To understand how these seeds grow, we can use the simple metaphor of a farmer. Every intentional action, word, or thought we generate is like planting a seed in the vast field of our own consciousness. We are all farmers, and we are sowing seeds constantly with every choice we make. Some seeds are for wheat, some are for flowers, and some are for poisonous weeds. This is the moment of action, the planting of the karmic cause. However, as any farmer knows, a seed does not sprout the moment it hits the ground. It requires time and the right conditions to ripen fertile soil, water, sunlight. In the same way, a karmic seed may lie dormant in our consciousness for a long time, waiting for the right supporting conditions to arise. This explains the delay we so often see between an action and its result. An act of great kindness performed today may not bear its fruit until years from now. when a particular life situation provides the water and sunlight for that seed to ripen. This also means that the difficulties we face today may be the ripening of unskillful seeds we planted long ago, perhaps even without realizing it. Eventually, when the conditions are right, the seed sprouts and we experience its fruit. This is called vipaka, the result. Wholesome seeds of kindness and generosity ripen into pleasant experiences. We find ourselves in supportive environments. We are met with kindness from others. We experience a sense of inner well-being. Unwholesome seeds of anger and greed ripen into painful experiences. We find ourselves in conflict. We are met with hostility. We experience anxiety and distress. Crucially, this harvest is not just about external events. Karma profoundly shapes our perception of reality. A person who constantly plants seeds of anger and suspicion will begin to experience the entire world as a hostile and untrustworthy place. A person who cultivates seeds of loving kindness will start to perceive the goodness and friendliness in the world all around them. We are literally creating the world we inhabit, from the inside out. Imagine two farmers. Both are given an identical plot of land, representing our shared human potential. The first farmer is unskillful. He complains endlessly about the things he cannot control: the rain, the sun, the wind. He pays no attention to the seeds he sows, carelessly scattering seeds of weeds and thorns, actions of anger, jealousy, and selfishness across his field. He does not bother to till the soil or water what he has planted. When his harvest comes, and it is nothing but bitter weeds and sharp thorns, he curses his bad luck, blaming the land and the weather for his misfortune. He sees himself as a victim. The second farmer is skillful. He accepts the weather as it is, knowing it is beyond his control. Instead, he focuses his energy on what he can control. He diligently prepares the soil, removing rocks and pulling old roots, the practice of calming and purifying the mind. He consciously chooses only the best seeds to plant, seeds of nourishing grains and sweet fruits, actions of generosity, patience, and compassion. He tends his field every day, watering his seeds and carefully removing any weeds that appear, the practice of sustained mindfulness and discipline. When his harvest comes, it is abundant, sweet, and nourishing. He understands with perfect clarity that this wonderful result is not a matter of luck, but the direct consequence of his own choices and efforts. He knows he is the architect of his own abundance. This parable is our life. We cannot always control the external weather, the economy, the actions of others, illness or accident. But we always have a choice about the seeds we plant. And this is where the teaching of karma becomes the ultimate doctrine of empowerment. While we must experience the fruit of the seeds we have already planted in the past, the present moment is a wide open field. This very moment, right now, is where new karma is made. We can either react to our current situation out of our old, conditioned habits, allowing past karma to determine our present action, or we can pause. We can take a mindful breath, and in that space of presence, we can choose to plant a new seed. We can choose kindness over anger. We can choose generosity over greed. We can choose understanding over delusion. This is the profound freedom that the law of karma reveals. We are not prisoners of our past. We are not bound by our history. We are the creators of our future, and the point of creation is always now. Every moment offers a chance to change our trajectory, to plant a better seed, to cultivate a more beautiful garden. Step by step, choice by choice, we are weaving the fabric of our destiny. Karma is not a sentence, but an invitation invitation to wake up to the power we hold in this very moment, and to use it wisely for the well-being of ourselves and all beings. Our journey inward has taken us to the very heart of our personal experience. We have learned to observe our minds, to care for our hearts, and to align our actions with an intention of kindness. Now, the path invites us to take a final, profound step outward, or perhaps more accurately, a step that dissolves the very distinction between inward and outward. It asks us to investigate the fundamental nature of reality itself. We have explored our inner landscape, and now we must explore the ground on which we stand, the very fabric of existence. This exploration leads us to the breathtaking and liberating truth of interconnectedness, a teaching known in the Pali language as paticcasamuppada, or dependent origination. We live our lives, for the most part, under a powerful and pervasive illusion, the illusion of separation. Our senses tell us a simple story. I am here, inside this body, and the rest of the world is out there. There is a solid, separate me, and there are billions of other separate yous. The world appears to be a collection of distinct, independent objects: a tree, a cloud, a stone, a house. This perception is so deeply ingrained that we rarely, if ever, question it. And yet, this very illusion of separation is the deepest, most subtle root of our suffering. It is the fundamental delusion that gives rise to the three poisons. From the belief in a separate me arises greed, the desire to protect and enhance this me by acquiring things from the outside world. From the belief in a separate you arises hatred, the fear and aversion towards anything perceived as a threat to my existence or my happiness. And the belief in separation itself is the core of delusion. This feeling of being an isolated fragment in a vast, indifferent cosmos is the source of our deepest existential loneliness, our fear, and our alienation. The teaching of dependent origination is the great cure for this fundamental disease of separation. It is an invitation to look more deeply beneath the surface of appearances and to see the world not as a collection of nouns, but as a symphony of verbs, a dynamic and flowing web of relationships. The Buddha expressed this profound law in a simple, elegant formula. When this is, that is. From the arising of this, that arises. When this is not, that is not. From the cessation of this, that ceases. This is not a complex philosophical theorem, but a simple description of reality that we can verify for ourselves. Let us take an object as simple as a flower. We look at it, and our minds immediately label it flower, a separate thing. But if we practice looking deeply, we see that the flower cannot exist by itself. It does not have a separate, independent self. Its existence is entirely dependent on a multitude of non-flower elements. For the flower to be, there must be the sun, which provides the light and warmth for photosynthesis. If you remove the sun, the flower ceases to be. There must be the clouds and the rain, which provide the water. If you remove the water, the flower ceases to be. There must be the soil and the countless microorganisms within it, providing the nutrients. If you remove the soil, the flower ceases to be. The flower's existence is also dependent on the gardener who planted the seed, and the parents of the gardener, and the entire chain of life that led to their existence. When we look at the flower, we can see the entire cosmos converging to make its momentary beauty possible. The flower is with everything else. To be is to be. Let us apply this same deep looking to ourselves. We have this strong feeling of being a separate, independent me. But what is this me made of? Let us look at our own hand. This hand, which we call mine, is composed entirely of non-hand elements. It is made of the food we have, eaten the bread, the vegetables, the fruit, but that food is made of the sun, the soil, and the rain. So the sun, the soil, and the rain are flowing in our hand right now. Our hand is made of the water we have drunk, and the air we are breathing at this very moment. Our hand is made of the DNA, passed down through countless generations of ancestors, each of whom lived and loved and struggled. Our thoughts, which we cherish as our own, are shaped by the language we learned from our parents, the ideas we encountered in books, the culture that surrounds us. If we were to remove all of these non-me elements, what would be left of me? The answer is nothing at all. The self we believe to be so solid and separate is, in fact, a temporary, ever-changing confluence of the entire universe. The boundary between self and world is a conceptual illusion. The universe is not something external to us. We are a wave in the ocean of the universe, a momentary expression of its boundless, creative energy. To help us visualize this profound reality, ancient Buddhist and Hindu sages offered a beautiful and powerful metaphor: the net of the god Indra. Imagine a vast cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. It is a web of gossamer threads, woven in such a way that at every single node where the threads cross, there hangs a single, multifaceted, perfectly polished jewel. The net is so vast that the number of jewels is limitless. Now, here is the magical quality of the net. If you were to look closely into the polished surface of any one jewel, you would see reflected in it every single other jewel in the entire net. And not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in that first jewel also reflects all the other jewels, and so on, in an infinite, recursive dance of light and reflection. Each jewel in this net represents a single being, a single event, a single atom in the universe. Each one has its own unique position, its own unique perspective, yet its very existence, its very identity, is defined by its relationship to all the others. It is simultaneously an individual and a reflection of the whole. Its brightness is the accumulated brightness of every other jewel. Nothing exists in isolation. When a single jewel is touched, a single vibration occurs. That vibration is transmitted instantly through the threads to every other jewel in the net. When one jewel is polished and shines more brightly, the entire net becomes more luminous. This is not just a beautiful piece of poetry. It is a description of how our universe functions. We are all jewels in this cosmic net. This understanding completely transforms our sense of responsibility and our relationship to the world. When we are trapped in the illusion of separation, it is possible to think that we can harm another person or pollute the environment without harming ourselves. We think the consequences of our actions will be contained over there. The wisdom of interconnectedness reveals this to be an impossibility. To pollute the river is to poison the water that will eventually find its way to our own tap. To speak a word of hatred is to add a vibration of hatred to the entire net, a vibration that inevitably ripples back and affects our own consciousness. To cause another being to suffer is, in the most literal sense, to harm a part of ourselves. The pain of the world is our pain. Conversely, this reveals the immense power and significance of our every wholesome action. A single, small act of kindness may seem insignificant in a world filled with so much strife, but in the reality of Indra's net, that act of kindness is a polishing of our own jewel. As our jewel shines more brightly, it is immediately reflected in all the others, and the entire net becomes a little more luminous. A moment of forgiveness, a gesture of generosity, a thought of compassion, these actions are never wasted. They ripple outward in ways we can never fully comprehend, contributing to the healing and awakening of the whole. We are not insignificant specks of dust. We are powerful co-creators of our shared reality, with every choice we make. This journey from the perception of a separate self to the realization of an interconnected whole is the ultimate homecoming. It dissolves our deepest existential loneliness. How can we ever be truly alone when we are intrinsically woven into the magnificent, shimmering fabric of all life? We learn to see ourselves in the tree, and the tree in ourselves. We see the suffering of another as our own, and the joy of another as our own. The hard boundaries of the ego melt away, revealing a vast, boundless field of belonging. This is the peace that surpasses all understanding, the joy of finally resting in the unified, radiant, and indivisible whole. It is the discovery that our true identity is not the small, isolated wave, but the entire, magnificent ocean. Our journey has brought us from the turbulent surface of our thoughts to the deep currents of our hearts, and further still to the vast, interconnected ocean of reality itself. We have seen that nothing exists in isolation, that every being and every event is a jewel in the infinite shimmering web of Indra's net, reflecting and being reflected by all others. This understanding of interconnectedness, or dependent origination, is a profound truth, but it holds within it a further, even more subtle and liberating realization. It is the key that unlocks the ultimate nature of reality, a teaching encapsulated in the Sanskrit word shunyata, most often translated as emptiness. This word, emptiness, can be frightening. It conjures images of a cold, dark void, of nothingness, of a nihilistic abyss where all meaning is lost. From the outset, it is crucial to understand that this is the complete opposite of what shunyata means in the Buddhist context. It is not a teaching of negation, but of liberation. It is not the discovery of a void, but the uncovering of an infinite potential. To understand emptiness is to understand the very nature of freedom itself. The simplest way to approach this profound concept is to see it as the other side of the coin of interconnectedness. The two are inseparable. The teaching of dependent origination showed us that any given thing or flower, for example, arises only in dependence on all the non-thing elements. The flower is made of sunlight, rain, soil, and air. It has no independent existence. The teaching of emptiness looks at this same reality and draws the logical conclusion. Because the flower is entirely made of non-flower elements, it is empty of any separate, isolated, independent self-nature. It is empty of a solid, enduring flowerness that exists on its own. This is a subtle but crucial point. Emptiness is not a statement that the flower does not exist. You can see the flower, smell it, touch it. It is very much there. It is a statement about how it exists. It exists not as a separate entity, but as a temporary, interdependent manifestation of the entire universe. And here we arrive at the beautiful paradox at the heart of this teaching. The flower is empty of a separate self, and precisely because of this emptiness, it can be full of the whole cosmos. Its emptiness is its openness, its capacity to receive the sunlight, to absorb the rain, to be in relationship with everything else. If a flower had a solid, unchanging, independent self, it would be like a plastic flower sealed off, unable to grow, unable to change, unable to live. Its emptiness is its very life. The same is true for us. The teaching of anatta, or non-self, showed us that we are empty of a permanent, separate me. The wisdom of shunyata deepens this realization. Because we are empty of a fixed self, we can be full of the world. We can be filled with the love of our family, nourished by the food we eat, inspired by the art we see, and transformed by the wisdom we hear. Our emptiness is our capacity to learn, to grow, to connect, and to love. If we were a solid, fixed entity, we would be a prisoner of our own identity, unable to change or evolve. Our emptiness is our freedom. A classic Zen analogy helps to make this concept more tangible. Imagine a beautiful ceramic cup. You can admire its color, its shape, the skill of the potter who made it. But what is the essential quality that makes it a cup? What is its function? Its usefulness lies precisely in the empty space inside it. The purpose of a cup is to hold something: water, tea, coffee. If the cup were not empty, if it were a solid block of clay, it would be useless as a cup. Its cupness is defined by its emptiness. The emptiness is not nothing. It is the cup's potential. In the same way, what makes a house a home? It is the empty space within the rooms that allows for life, for movement, for relationship. The walls define the emptiness, but the emptiness is what makes it livable. Shunyata is this enabling emptiness. It is the open, receptive ground of being, the fertile spaciousness from which all forms, all experiences, and all possibilities can arise. This understanding is not just a high-minded philosophical concept. It is a direct path to psychological liberation. Much of our suffering comes from our tendency to cling to concepts, labels, and ideas as if they were solid, ultimate realities. We create a solid identity for ourselves. I am a successful person, or I am a failure. I am an anxious person. I am not good enough. We create solid identities for others. He is a good person. She is a difficult person. We cling to political ideologies, religious dogmas, and scientific theories as absolute truths. We turn our fluid, complex reality into a world of fixed, hard-edged, and often conflicting concepts. The wisdom of emptiness acts as a universal solvent, gently dissolving this conceptual rigidity. It shows us that all these labels are empty of inherent, ultimate reality. The person we label a failure is a vast and complex process of thoughts, feelings, and actions, full of potential for change. The identity of failure is just a story, a concept we have imposed. The political or religious idea we hold as absolute truth is a product of specific historical and cultural conditions. It is empty of being the one and only way of seeing the world. When we see the emptiness of our concepts, we don't discard them, but we hold them more lightly. Our minds become flexible, spacious, and open. We are freed from the prison of our own certainty. We can listen to others with a genuine curiosity, because we are no longer desperately defending our own fixed position. This is the antidote to all forms of fundamentalism and the foundation for true wisdom. This leads to the most famous distillation of this teaching, a line from the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. This is not a riddle. It is a profound statement of non-duality. Form is emptiness means that all the forms of this world, this body, that tree, this thought, when examined deeply, are found to be empty of a separate self. Emptiness is form means that this emptiness is not a blank nothingness found somewhere else. It is manifest right here as the vibrant, colorful, ever-changing dance of the world of forms. Reality is not one or the other. It is this inseparable dance of form and emptiness. The wave is the ocean, and the ocean is the wave. To rest in this understanding is to find a peace that is beyond all concepts. It is the joy of participating fully in the beautiful, tragic, and magnificent dance of life, while knowing that our true nature and the nature of all things is as open, as boundless, and as free as the sky itself. It is the freedom of the cup, whose value is its emptiness. It is the freedom of the mountain, whose strength is its spaciousness. It is the freedom of the sky, which can hold every cloud, every storm, and every star, and yet remain unstained, untouched, and serenely, luminously empty. We have traveled a long and profound path together, journeying from the restless chatter of the mind to the serene, open sky of emptiness. We have explored the nature of our suffering and the path to its end. We have learned to cultivate a heart of boundless kindness and compassion. Now, we arrive at the most practical and perhaps most intimate application of this wisdom. We arrive at the threshold between the activity of the day and the deep rest of the night. This transition, which we so often rush through with an exhausted collapse, can become a sacred and healing ritual. It can be a time to consciously unburden the heart, to wash away the dust of the day, and to prepare the ground of our being for a truly deep and restorative peace. This is the practice of consciously letting go, of creating a space for sleep to arise naturally and gracefully. Let us begin by preparing our environment, not as a chore, but as the first step in this ritual of self-care. The day is done. The world and its demands can wait until tomorrow. Gently, give yourself permission to disconnect. Turn off the bright overhead lights and allow the room to be filled with a soft, warm glow. Put away your phone, your tablet, your laptop. These devices, with their endless streams of stimulating information and their blue-tinted light, are designed to keep the mind agitated and awake. To invite rest, we must first turn away from that which creates restlessness. You might open a window slightly to let in the cool night air. Find your comfortable position in bed, arranging your pillows and blankets so that your body feels completely supported, completely at ease. This is not another task to complete, another thing to get right. It is an act of profound kindness to yourself. It is a gift, the gift of a quiet mind and a peaceful heart. Now, lying here comfortably, let your eyes softly close. Take a few deep, gentle breaths. Breathing in, acknowledge the fullness of the day that has passed. Breathing out, feel a sense of release, a signal to your body and mind that it is now time to let go. We will now begin a gentle review of the day, not with the sharp mind of analysis or judgment, but with the soft, spacious mind of compassionate awareness. Allow the events of the day to drift through your mind like leaves floating on a gentle stream. There is no need to grasp at them or to push them away. Simply let them appear and pass. First, let us invite the moments of goodness to come forward. Allow your memory to touch upon any small joys, any moments of connection or ease that the day held. Perhaps it was the warmth of the morning sun on your face. Perhaps it was the taste of a satisfying meal. Perhaps it was a moment of shared laughter with a colleague or a friend. Perhaps it was a simple moment of beauty. You noticed the color of the sky, the sound of a bird. As each of these small positive memories arises, allow yourself to feel it again. For a moment, let the feeling of gratitude, even a subtle one, permeate your heart. Acknowledge the goodness, however small. In doing so, you are watering the seeds of joy and appreciation within you, counteracting the mind's natural tendency to fixate on what went wrong. Thank the day for these small gifts. Now, with the same gentle, non-judgmental awareness, allow any moments of difficulty, tension, or regret to surface. Perhaps there was a conversation that left you feeling hurt or misunderstood. Perhaps you made a mistake at work. Perhaps you spoke a harsh word out of impatience, or acted in a way you now regret. Do not push these memories away. Do not condemn yourself for them. Simply allow them to be present in the spaciousness of your awareness. These moments are our greatest teachers, if we can learn to meet them with wisdom. Let us first work with any hurt caused by others. Bring to mind a person or situation that brought you difficulty today. See the person in your mind's eye and try to look beyond their actions to the suffering that may have been driving them. Remember that all beings, in their own confused way, are seeking happiness. Their unskillful actions almost always arise from their own fear, their own pain, their own insecurity. Seeing this, you can offer them a silent forgiveness, not as a way of condoning their behavior, but as a way of freeing your own heart from the poison of anger and resentment. You might silently say to them, "I see the suffering that motivated your actions. For the sake of my own peace, I am letting this go. I will not carry your burden for you. I wish you peace." Feel the release in this act of letting go. Now, we turn to the most important part of this practice, offering that same forgiveness to ourselves. Bring to mind any action of your own that you regret, any moment where you were not your best self. See it clearly, without excuse, but also without harsh condemnation. Recognize the intention behind your action. It is likely that you were acting from a place of your own tiredness, your own fear, your own confusion. You are a human being, learning and growing. Hold yourself now with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend who had made the same mistake. You can place a hand on your own heart, a gesture of profound self-acceptance, and you can whisper to yourself, "I did the best I could with the awareness I had in that moment. I am still learning. I forgive myself completely. I let this go." Feel the deep relief of releasing the burden of your own perfectionism. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly illustrates this process. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long journey. They came to a river where a young woman was standing, afraid to cross because of the strong current. Without hesitation, the senior monk lifted the woman onto his shoulders, carried her across the river, and set her down gently on the other side. The two monks then continued their journey in silence. Hours passed. The junior monk grew more and more agitated, his face a mask of disapproval. Finally, he could contain himself no longer. He burst out, "Brother, you know we are forbidden to touch a woman. How could you break such a sacred vow by carrying that woman across the river?" The senior monk looked at his young companion with a calm, gentle gaze. He replied, "Brother, I put that woman down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This is the question this nightly ritual asks of us. The day, with all its events, its conversations, its challenges, is over. It is by the side of the river. Are we still carrying it? Are we carrying the anger, the regret, the worry in our minds and into our sacred space of rest? This practice is the conscious and deliberate act of putting it all down. We have acknowledged the good. We have forgiven the difficult. Now, we let it all go, releasing the entire day into the great, flowing river of time. With the mind now clearer and the heart more open, we can seal our practice with the warmth of loving kindness. Let us offer a few simple wishes. First, for ourselves, as we prepare for sleep. Silently, repeat in your heart, "May I be safe and protected through the night. May my sleep be deep and truly restful. May my body be healed and restored. May my mind be peaceful and at ease. Now, bring to mind your loved ones, your family, and dear friends. Picture them resting peacefully. Extend these same wishes to them. May you be safe and protected through the night. May your sleep be deep and restful. May you be healed and restored. May your minds be peaceful and at ease. Finally, let your heart expand to include all beings everywhere, your neighbors, the people in your city, and all people across the planet, all animals, all living things. In this quiet moment, recognize our shared vulnerability, our shared need for rest and peace, and offer the simple, boundless wish. May all beings be safe tonight. May all beings find rest from their struggles. May all beings be at peace. Now, there is nothing left to do, no one to be, no problem to solve. Let go of all techniques, all intentions. Simply come home to the most natural and soothing rhythm in your existence, the rhythm of your own breath. Feel the gentle sensation of the air entering your body, a wave of life and oxygen, and feel the complete letting go, the total release of the out-breath. There is nothing to hold on to. Each out-breath is a deeper release, a further surrender into rest. Allow your awareness to rest in the physical sensations of your body. Feel the weight of your head on the pillow. Let it be heavy. Let it be supported. Feel the muscles in your face softening, your jaw releasing, your shoulders melting down and away from your ears. Feel the weight of your arms and hands, heavy and warm. Feel your entire back, surrendering its weight to the bed beneath you. Letting go of all holding in your hips, your legs, feeling your feet, soft and warm. Your whole body, from head to toe, is now invited to rest. It knows how to heal itself. It knows how to sleep. All you have to do is get out of the way. With each breath, feel yourself becoming heavier, softer, sinking more deeply into a state of profound peace. If thoughts arise, see them as distant, gentle clouds passing in a vast night sky. You do not need to follow them. Your home is here, with the breath, with the body, in this deep, quiet stillness. Trust this process. Trust this peace. Surrender to the vast, empty, and restorative space of sleep. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Simply resting, letting go. We have arrived at the final leg of our shared journey. We have traveled through the intricate corridors of the mind, navigated the deep chambers of the heart, and gazed upon the vast, interconnected nature of reality itself. We began with a simple, human longing, the desire to find peace, to be free from the stress and anxiety that so often define our modern lives. It is natural, at the end of such a journey, to ask, what now? Where is the final destination? When do we finally arrive at a state of permanent enlightenment, a lasting nirvana, free from all troubles? This question, born of a sincere desire for an end to suffering, points to the final and most subtle illusion we must let go of on the spiritual path, the illusion of a destination. From the moment we begin a spiritual practice, we are often conditioned by the goal-oriented mindset of our culture. We see the path as a project, a ladder to be climbed. We believe that if we just meditate enough, read enough, understand enough, or practice diligently enough, we will eventually achieve a grand prize at the end. We will win the trophy of enlightenment. We will become a new, perfected, superhuman version of ourselves, forever serene and untroubled. But this very mindset, this deep-seated craving to become something else in the future, is just another manifestation of tanha, the thirst that the Buddha identified as the root of all suffering. It is the spiritual version of the same seeking that drives materialism. If only I had that car, I would be happy. If only I had that enlightenment, I would be happy. It keeps our peace hostage to a future moment that never arrives, and in doing so, it causes us to miss the only place where true peace can ever be found, right here in the raw, imperfect, and immediate reality of this present moment. The most liberating secret of the path is this: the path is the goal. The destination is not at the end of the road. It is woven into the very fabric of every single step. The way you walk is the destination. This means we must reframe our entire understanding of what awakening or enlightenment truly is. It is not a singular, cataclysmic event that happens once and for all. It is not a permanent state of bliss that makes you immune to the challenges of human life. Rather, enlightenment is a verb. It is the continuous, moment-to-moment process of waking up. It is the ongoing practice of choosing awareness over distraction, compassion over judgment, and wisdom over confusion. These moments of enlightenment are not reserved for secluded monks in remote monasteries. They are available to you in the most ordinary moments of your everyday life. When you are about to snap at your partner out of irritation, and you pause, take a breath, and choose a kinder word instead, that is a moment of enlightenment. When you are stuck in traffic, feeling the hot surge of frustration, and instead of leaning on the horn, you consciously relax your grip on the steering wheel and soften your belly, that is a moment of enlightenment. When you feel the familiar ache of anxiety, and instead of spiraling into panic, you place a hand on your heart and offer yourself a moment of compassion, that is a moment of enlightenment. When you look at a tree, and for a single instant, the mental chatter stops, and you are simply present with its magnificent, quiet being, that is a moment of enlightenment. Awakening is not about becoming a different person. It is about becoming more fully, more consciously, and more compassionately who you already are. When we grasp this, our entire life transforms into our spiritual practice. The false division between spiritual time on the meditation cushion and regular time in the world dissolves. Every moment becomes the curriculum. The formal practice of sitting meditation is the training ground, the gymnasium where we strengthen the muscles of mindfulness, concentration, and compassion. The rest of our life is the field where we get to use these muscles. Washing the dishes ceases to be a chore and becomes a meditation on mindful action. Feeling the warmth of the water, the texture of the soap, the simple, tangible reality of the task. A difficult meeting at work becomes an advanced practice in right speech, deep listening, and maintaining equanimity amidst disagreement. Eating a meal becomes a practice of gratitude and a deep contemplation of interconnectedness. Seeing the sun, the rain, the earth, and the labor of countless beings present in your food. The moments that we once saw as irritating interruptions, a crying child, a delayed train, a computer that crashes, revealed to be our most potent opportunities to practice patience, to let go of control, and to meet life as it is, rather than as we demand it to be. Your life, exactly as it is right now, is your perfect spiritual teacher. It is constantly presenting you with the precise lessons you need to learn. It is crucial to understand that progress on this path is not a straight upward line. It is far more like a spiral. We will encounter the same challenges, the same triggers, the same conditioned habits, over and over again. You may have a week of feeling calm and compassionate, only to find yourself completely consumed by anger the following week. You may feel a deep sense of connection and peace, only to be revisited by a familiar wave of loneliness and fear. This is not a sign that you have failed or that the practice is not working. It is simply the nature of the path. Each time we circle back to an old pattern, we do so from a new vantage point. We bring a little more awareness, a little more wisdom, a little more kindness to it than we did the time before. The pattern may still arise, but our relationship to it has changed. We are no longer its unconscious victim. We can see it, smile at its familiarity, and choose a different response. The goal is not to create a life free of all weeds, but to become a wise and compassionate gardener of our own heart. This is why patience and profound self-compassion are the most essential qualities for a lifelong practitioner. There will be days when the practice feels easy and joyful, and there will be days when it feels like a struggle, when your mind is a chaotic storm and your heart feels closed. On these difficult days, the practice is simply to be kind to yourself. The practice is to notice your struggle and to meet it with gentleness rather than judgment. The act of beginning again after we have fallen back into an old habit is perhaps the most powerful practice of all. Each gentle return to the breath, each renewed commitment to kindness is a victory. There is no better metaphor for this entire understanding than the practice of walking meditation. When you practice walking meditation, you are not trying to get anywhere. The purpose is not the destination at the other end of the lawn or the meditation hall. The entire purpose, the entire joy, the entire liberation is found in the quality of each single step. To feel the sole of your foot lifting from the earth, to feel your leg moving through space, to feel the gentle contact as your foot once again connects with the ground. Each step is an arrival. Each step is the destination. The peace is not waiting at the end of the walk. It is present in the very act of walking mindfully, and so it is with our lives. The peace we seek is not waiting for us in some imagined future after we have fixed all our flaws and solved all our problems. It is available right now in the very quality of attention and kindness we bring to this messy, imperfect, beautiful moment. Peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of a heart that has the capacity to hold those problems with spaciousness and compassion. It is not the silencing of all the storms of life, but the discovery of the vast, silent, unshakable sky that can hold every storm without being disturbed. The journey we have taken together was never about becoming someone new. It was about stripping away the illusions that prevent us from seeing who we have been all along. You are already whole. You are already complete. You are already home. The path is simply the continuous, moment-to-moment act of remembering this profound and simple truth. It is in the gentle return to the breath. It is in the choice of a kind word. It is in the compassionate attention you offer to your own sorrow. The path is here. The destination is now. We began this journey together in the quiet desperation of a sleepless night, feeling adrift in the relentless current of a modern world, a world that demands we run faster, acquire more, and become someone other than who we are. We looked outward for a source of peace, a refuge from the storms of stress and anxiety. We have traveled far since that initial moment, but our journey has been one of turning inward, a great homecoming to the landscape of our own being. We have walked the path from identifying the ceaseless, anxious storyteller in our own minds, to understanding the very nature of its sorrow. We saw that our suffering arises not from the world itself, but from our mind's habit of clinging to what is pleasant and resisting what is unpleasant. We looked for the solid ground of a permanent self and found instead the liberating truth of a flowing, selfless process. interconnected with all of life. We learn to sit, to breathe, to watch, and to cultivate a heart of unshakable kindness, compassion, and balance. The entire journey has been leading us to this one simple and profoundly liberating realization. The peace you have been seeking is not, and has never been, outside of you. It is not a destination to be reached, a prize to be won, or a state to be achieved after years of struggle. Peace is your fundamental nature. It is the silent, spacious sky of awareness that was here before the first thought cloud appeared, and will be here after the last one has drifted away. We have not been building a shelter. We have been learning to recognize the home in which we have always lived. Just as sleep arrives not through forceful effort, but through the gentle act of letting go, so too does peace arise in the heart, the moment we relax our frantic grip on the world, the moment we stop struggling against the natural flow of life, and simply allow ourselves to be. This understanding places the key to your freedom directly into your own hands. You do not need to go anywhere else. You do not need to acquire any new quality. You have everything you need, right now. Your own breath is your most faithful anchor, always ready to bring you back to the sanity of the present moment. Your own awareness is a boundless refuge, capable of holding every joy, every sorrow, every thought, and every emotion with a steady and non-judgmental embrace. And your own heart, when tended with care, is an infinite wellspring of the kindness, compassion, and courage needed to navigate this life with grace. The path is not about becoming a perfect person. It is about bringing a perfect, loving attention to your beautifully imperfect life. The search is over. The real practice, the practice of living, has just begun. The stillness you seek is the stillness you are.